Chapter 1699. Little Fairy Ching Ching. I don't care. I'll take a look first. Luo Qingshun didn't tell Ling Luo that she was a math genius since she was a natural talent. After several lifetimes of hard work, she didn't need to use exchange points to write down the process and directly calculate the answer in her mind. This was much more difficult than piano grade 10. There weren't many people who signed up for the Star School's large lecture hall. Most of them relied on scholarships and excellent grades to enter the Star School. Luo Qingshun saw Pei Dan right away. She had a bright smile on her face, like she wasn't sad about breaking up with Jiang Iliang at all. But actually, that was just an act on the surface. Only she knew how much resentment she had in her heart. Ching Ching. Ling Luo waved her hand and loudly called her name. Luo Qingshun walked over to her and looked at the number tag on her chest. She said with a faint smile, "You really signed up. I told my sister that I wanted to make a small contribution to stop some people from getting money." Ling Luo looked at her with a proud look, showing that she was very useful. Luo Qingshun gave a helpless shrug. This is called giving your head away. As soon as her voice fell, she wrote her name on the register. Then a member of the student council gave her a number tag, number 52. It seemed like there were very few people participating in this competition, but there were many people watching. There were over 1,000 spots, and they were already filled with people. It seemed like they were paying attention to Pei Dan. After all, she had just broken up with school hunk Jiang, so it was normal for them to want to know about her. Little did she know that in the next second, a burst of whispers from the onlookers around her made her head buzz. The story between the school hunk and Cinderella was no longer something that people cared about. Did you follow School Hunk Mo's Weibo? He just posted that he wanted to watch this year's math Olympiad. I saw it. I came because I saw his Weibo. Mr. Tom even replied to his Weibo and called him teacher. Right. He's super charismatic, handsome and gentle. His eyes aren't that bad. Luo Qingshun touched her ears and gently put on her coat. She sat in the corner in a low-key manner. She never thought that Mo Zaichun, who was covered in the glow of I'm the center of attention, would sit down beside her and give her the chocolate milk from Starbucks. There's less milk and sugar. I don't know if you like sweets or not. Hiss. Luo Qingshun sucked in a breath of cold air, then cleared her throat and said softly, "How did you know I was here? I could see my girlfriend at a glance." His voice was very gentle, and there was an inexplicable feeling to it. In front of all the little fangirls around them, they openly showed off their love. The girls sitting around them curled their lips unwillingly, but because both sides were important figures of the four big families in City A. Even if he was a little unhappy, he couldn't say anything. She was just a little surprised that Luo Qingshun had suddenly changed from a girl chasing after the school hunk to a girl who was even more outstanding than the school hunk. It seemed that no matter what, Campus Hunk Zhang's taste was not as good as Campus Hunk Mo's. Chapter 1700. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the host gave a simple introduction and the competition officially began. Since Pei Dan was last year's champion, she skipped the first round and went straight to the second round. She sat on the sofa with a smile on her face, wearing a crown on her head and a faint smile on her lips. Actually, even if there were over 1,000 people under the stage, she could still see Jiang Iliang with a single glance. At this moment, she couldn't describe the sadness in her heart, but there was a familiar feeling. After all, the first time she met Jiang Iliang was at this Olympiad competition. Of course, she had successfully attracted the idol of the thousands of girls in the school. Through her own efforts, she had become the most important person to him. Now, it had only been a year and everything had changed. That man's eyes were no longer on her, but rather he was looking in another direction. Looking in that direction, she saw a familiar face, one that made her feel incomparably disgusted. All right, next, let's invite student number 52, Luo Qingshun, to fight against student number 67, Jiang Iliang. Luo Qingshun was surprised. She had to admit, enemies really did meet on a narrow road in this world. But what she found strange was why Jiang Iliang would participate in this competition. Properly speaking, after breaking up with Pei Dan, he shouldn't be lacking in money. The supporting male lead's math is very good. Last year's finals were between Pei Dan Dan and Jiang Yiliang. The system enthusiastically explained, making Luo Qingshun give a long "oh" sound as she suddenly understood. So this was how this infatuated man and woman met. When the two of them walked onto the stage, Jiang Yiliang said in a low voice, "It can't be that you're participating because of me, right? I remember you saying that if the heavens gave you another chance, you would definitely participate in the competition and wouldn't let me meet Pei Dan Dan." He had seen her get into Mo. Zhe Chen's car this morning, and his heart felt very uncomfortable. He suddenly knew that he couldn't treat Luo Qingshan like before. Perhaps he should be gentle, treating her like how he treated Pei Dan Dan. Only like this could he awaken her past thoughts for him. Jiang Yiliang's low and mushy words gave her goosebumps. She didn't say these words at all right? She could accept any other pot the original owner threw at her, but she wouldn't accept this. "Sorry." Luo Qingshan snorted, her eyes flashing with a touch of coldness. "The person who said this is already dead. I don't believe it." Jiang Yiliang stubbornly shook his head. "Your math isn't good. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have—" "Stop." Luo Qingshan couldn't bear to listen to his disgusting words. She interrupted him and said, "Student Jiang, are you so sure that you'll win? Both parties are in position. Next, we will begin the 30 seconds preparation time." The first round was a multiple-choice question. Whoever took the shortest time would be the winner. If both parties could answer 10 questions correctly within 1 minute, they would both advance to the next round. The moment the huge computer screen in front of her lit up, Luo Qingshan's pair of clear eyes flashed with a faint golden light. This kind of moment, this kind of atmosphere, it completely belonged to her absolute domain. And Mo Zhe-chun, sitting under the stage, couldn't help being deeply attracted by her sparkling eyes, as his lips couldn't help curling into a gentle smile. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. Pei Dan Dan, sitting on the side, revealed a look of disdain. In her eyes, a bad student like Luo Qingshan couldn't answer a single question. Chapter 17:01. After 10 seconds, Luo Qingshan clicked submit, and the blue answer board behind her lit up, but there were no results. In order to ensure fairness, the results had to come out after a minute. At this moment, Jiang Yiliang was a bit nervous. He didn't know if Luo Qingshan's answers were right or wrong, but he knew that he had already lost in terms of time. If he couldn't finish in a minute, his chances of winning would be low. Of course, this was if Luo Qingshan answered all of them correctly. Since they were young, although he didn't understand Luo Qingshan, it was a fact that she was a bad student. It was probably because of her family status, so it didn't matter if she had good grades or not. Time's up. When the host spoke, Jiang Yiliang pressed submit at exactly 59 seconds. "All right, now we'll announce the correct rate and answers." The host said with a smile, "Classmate Luo and classmate Jiang are the only two who answered the questions in less than a minute." After saying this, the two screens behind her lit up, and she paused before saying, "Moreover, it's a pair of all correct duels." Hiss! Everyone present instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Pei Dan Dan stood up from the sofa, looking at the answer board behind her with a look of disbelief. How is this possible? Luo Qingshan was someone who always got below average. How could she answer in such a short period of time? No, it was definitely impossible. She must have chosen randomly. Jiang Yiliang looked over at the calm Luo Qingshan, not seeing any excitement or joy in her eyes. It was like this was a common thing for her. It wasn't difficult at all. Next, let's give a warm round of applause to the two students for advancing. Pa 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 pa. Pa Luo Qingshan walked over to Mo Zhe-chun in front of the warm applause. His gaze had been on her from the beginning to the end, and he had never looked away. It was a look of admiration and pampering. "How is it? Was I handsome enough?" She sat back down beside Mo Zhe-chun and raised a brow, as her lips curled into a faint smile. She was like a little doll who had scored full marks on an exam, proudly wanting to be praised by people who valued her. And Mo Zhe-chun took out a bag of chestnut from the bag behind him and stuffed them into her mouth as fast as lightning. "Very good. So be it. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips. While eating chestnuts, she looked at him proudly and said, "Shouldn't a professor studying abroad have more magnificent and noble adjectives to describe my excellence?" Mo Zai-chan was silent for 3 seconds before putting another peeled chestnut in her mouth. There are chestnuts in winter and mangoes in summer. As for you, you shine in all 4 seasons. Why didn't this sound like a compliment? It sounded more like flirting. All right, I've passed. Another one? Okay. Drink some water. The surrounding people saw the interaction between Luo Qingshun and Mo Zai-chun. It was clearly a normal interaction, but the surrounding people felt a strange sweetness. But there was one person who was different. Jiang Iliang, who was sitting not far away, narrowed his eyes as a trace of unwillingness flashed in his eyes. This was clearly something that belonged to him. How could it be taken away? This thing that didn't attract anyone's attention before was now the focus of everyone's eyes no matter where they went. Chapter 17:02. At this moment, Pei Dan, who was on the stage, was checking the answers over and over again. She gritted her teeth and felt a burst of displeasure in her heart. Even she might not be able to solve these 10 questions in such a short time. How could Luo Qingshun do it? She must have guessed it. She must. She told herself over and over again. After overcoming all the difficulties, she finally arrived at the final showdown. And the person who entered the showdown with her was none other than Luo Qingshun. More and more people gathered in the stadium. Everyone had the attitude of watching a good show and kept pouring in. At this time, the stairs of the entire stadium were filled with people. They were all waiting for the final showdown. The voices of the surrounding audience became louder and louder. Everyone was talking and entering into a heated discussion. Damn, how did Luo Qingshun suddenly become so powerful? She shouldn't have the answers in advance, right? It's possible. After all, Tom is school hunk Mo's student and Luo Qingshun is his girlfriend. It's not strange for her to have the answers. I don't think it's possible. Even if she had the answers, how long would it take to memorize them? Although most of the questions are multiple choice, it's easy to make mistakes. Luo Qingshun didn't answer a single question wrong. It's because she didn't answer a single question wrong that it's strange. You say her grades. How is it possible? Don't say the grapes are sour just because you can't eat them. Maybe she was a top student before and didn't care about the exam results. There were many discussions among the students. Some were doubtful and some were positive. Luo Qingshun didn't mind. After all, it was normal to have doubts. The original owner's grades weren't very good before. Next, let's invite the dark horse Luo Qingshun classmate and the champion Pei Dan classmate to enter the final showdown. Wah! The lights in the entire stadium suddenly became brighter. Pei Dan took advantage of the gap and whispered in Luo Qingshun's ear, "You can't win against me. Give up." Luo Qingshun heard this and narrowed her eyes and replied, "You can only mock people in your dark state? Too weak. You? Good. Let's start the countdown now. Let's have a taste of Mr. Tom's mathematical Olympiad problem." Whether it was a multiple-choice question or a major question, it seemed to be the same for Luo Qingshun. After all, she was a lazy person who only liked to write the answers and not the process. Luo Qingshun took less than 3 minutes to solve the 12 questions. When she pressed the submit button, she turned to look at Pei Dan and snorted, "You lost." In the next second, the panel behind Luo Qingshun lit up with a large number, 100 points. Due to the competition mechanism, the first was the accuracy rate, the second was the time. If one could complete the questions in the shortest time possible and get all the answers correct, the results of the competition would be announced in advance and the competition would end. Pei Dan pursed her lips. Her face flushed red and her lips trembled. Professor Tom's questions were really difficult. So much so that even if she used all her brain power, she could only calculate the third question. But Luo Qingshun could answer all the questions in such a short time. Furthermore, there was no process for each question on the big screen, only the answer. She did not believe it. She absolutely did not believe it. "You cheated." When Luo Qingshun walked down the stairs, there was a sharp voice that came from behind her. She put her hands in her pockets, and a cold look appeared in her eyes. Pei Dan continued, "People who follow gossip know that classmate Mo Zai-chun is Professor Tom's teacher. With your relationship, you must know the answer ahead of time." Chapter 17:03. She wouldn't agree if she was wronged. She wouldn't agree if Mo Zai-chun was wronged. Pei Dan was scared by Luo Qingchun's sudden aura and couldn't help taking a step back. The host awkwardly tried to ease the atmosphere. These 12 questions were randomly chosen from Mr. Tom's 30,000 questions. There shouldn't be any cheating. Humph, who knows? Pei Dan looked at Luo Qingchun with sharp eyes and said, "Some people just like to do these kinds of little tricks." Her voice was very small. Only the host and Luo Qingchun could hear it. Luo Qingchun gave a shrug and said, "What can you do to me?" Pei Dan was so angry when she heard these words. Her face turned red and white, and she felt like she was going to vomit blood. She angrily took out a USB from her bag and loudly said to everyone, "This is all the Olympiad questions from the past few years, and I haven't done any of the tens of thousands of questions. I want to use this to compete. It should be fair." As soon as her voice fell, there were students who shouted, "What a joke! Using your own USB as a question bank to say it's fair. Are you crazy about money?" "That's right. This is the prize money Mr. Tom paid for. Using your question bank?" I don't know why, but I felt that Luo Qingchun was answering the questions too smoothly. "But hearing you say this treasure really doesn't want you to win. As the saying goes, if you say one wrong word, you might lose the whole game." Pei Dan was currently in this predicament. She probably wanted the 100,000 yuan too much, so she had no choice but to use this method. But she didn't know that talking about Mo Zai-chun made her even angrier than talking about her. Perhaps only when she fell to the bottom would she know that the person she offended again and again wasn't a good person. "All right, I don't care." Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes and her lips curled into a faint smile. "How about 100 questions in 30 minutes? You, what did you say? I want you to know what it means to completely lose." Pei Dan was stunned and didn't know what to do at that moment. He always felt that things that were going to be a sure win were suddenly not so accurate. Luo Qingchun's indifferent face had a touch of confidence in her eyes, which made her feel extremely uncomfortable. "All right, since student Luo has agreed, then I will proceed with the final battle. Qingchun, you can do it." Ling Luo shouted her name from under the stage with an excited look. Within 3 seconds, all the students in the hall seemed to be shouting at the same time, "Qingchun, you can do it. Good luck, Qingchun. Good luck, Qingchun." Pei Dan sneered. A sinister look flashed across her eyes as she said, "Mediocre people are really useless. Next, we'll begin the 15-second countdown." The supporter smiled awkwardly and said, "Good luck, both of you." 15 seconds later, the question bank in Pei Dan's USB drive began to scroll on the big screen. All of them were big questions with 3 to 4 lines. But Luo Qingchun still used the electronic pen to write the standard answer with beautiful handwriting. There was only the answer and no process. Time passed very quickly. Although Pei Dan had an impression of many of the questions, there were 100 questions. With such a large question bank, she didn't have the strength to do it. On the other hand, Luo Qingchun wrote her answer without hesitation, without any hesitation. In 2 minutes and 13 seconds, she had already finished the 100 questions, but she casually put her hands in her pockets and walked off the stage without looking back. Chapter 17:04. She didn't know that as soon as she walked off the stage, Pei Dan's wild cries came from the stage. Mo Zai-chun tightly knit his brows and pulled Luo Qingchun, who was casually walking toward her, protecting her behind him. The host was scared by Pei Dan's beast-like voice and took a few steps back. Unexpectedly, Pei Dan, whose face was red and whose eyes were bloodshot, grabbed her and asked while gritting her teeth, tell me clearly, did she write it randomly? Are her answers all wrong? Do you think?" She angrily roared out, almost falling into a state of madness. The security guard in the stadium rushed forward to grab her, and Mr. Tom seriously looked at the answers on Luo Qingchun's screen. 2 minutes later, he said in broken Chinese. "Oh my God, this is too amazing. This is simply a genius." "What do you mean?" Pei Dan heard this and struggled while angrily roaring at Mr. Tom. Her heart had already been swallowed by flames. The questions that classmate Luo did just now were all correct. It was completely normal. Mr. Tom jumped up like a child in excitement, not caring about the angry Pei Dan on the side at all. All the students of Star School looked at her with looks of disdain. A person without any status, not even having the status of a top student. What right did she have to stay in Star School? Pei Dan scram out of Star School. Pei Dan scram out of Star School. Pei Dan scram out of Star School. Wave after wave of shouts rang in her ears. At this moment, all of her rationality was completely swallowed up by the darkness. Luo Chun, standing under the stage, saw her deathly still eyes and suddenly felt an uneasy feeling in her heart. After that, there was a sea of flames in front of her, and the pitiful cries around her filled her ears. She bit her lip and covered her chest with her right hand as beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. Mo Zaichen noticed that something was wrong with her and softly touched her forehead. "What is it?" Luo Qingchun took a deep breath and shook her head. "No, nothing." She knew that he was worried about her and cared about her. However, she knew very well that this kind of future encounter ability was nonsense in the eyes of anyone. There was no need to worry. It seemed like the effects of the plane's collapse were more terrifying than she had imagined. "If there's anything, just tell me. My ability is more powerful than you think." His gentle voice sounded in her ear, giving her a certain degree of calmness. It's good that you're here. I've been here. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. After the mathematical Olympiad, she rested at home for 2 days. Ling Luo kept urging her to go to class if there was nothing wrong with her, because she was very bored. Mo Zai-chan reminded her to wake up, eat, and sleep on time. In fact, these days were really leisurely. It was just that she was very anxious. However, she hadn't seen anything else for the past 2 days since she saw the fire. She didn't know if it was because she wasn't strong enough or if she was being too suspicious. After all, her mission was about to be completed. Even if Pei Dan did something, she could deal with it with her abilities. Chapter 1705. The next day at noon, in an elegant Western restaurant, Ling Luo said that she had to treat her to a meal since she could bring glory to the Star Royal students. After all, this kind of Olympiad competition was the business of the genius commoners. It wasn't related to them at all. It was different this time. Luo Qingxun of the 4 great families had won the Olympiad competition, and she had instantly defeated the genius commoner. This kind of big news spread through the school in just a few days. There were some people who liked to talk about the love triangle, but now they could only say that Jiang Iliang's eyes really weren't that good. "Thank you for your hospitality, Ling Luo." Luo Qingxun raised her glass as her lips curled. "Cheers." Ling Luo sipped her red wine and said, "It's been a long time since I've played games. Now that the 3 of us have met in real life, I feel that it's quite amazing. Moreover, we're in the same school." Mo Zai-chun continued, "I heard that you have a performance for the school celebration the day after tomorrow." "The day after tomorrow? School celebration?" Luo Qingxun blinked, showing that she didn't know about this at all. Without knowing why, she felt an inexplicable panic when she heard the word school celebration, and it was very strong. "Yes, you didn't know that I was on leave for 2 days. Ling Luo thought about it before saying, "I'm performing in a play. It's a performance." When she said this, Ling Luo had an excited look on her face, like she was dancing with joy. From the looks of it, she should be very fond of things like acting. "What do you want to act as?" Luo Qingxun looked over Ling Luo, a handsome society queen. Ling Luo looked at her with a helpless look. "Isn't that just acting as myself? How boring." Luo Qingxun looked at her with a confused look. "Then what do you want to act as?" "A costume drama." "Oh." Luo Qingxun suddenly understood. "A female constable? A female assassin?" No. Ling Luo said no 3 times before looking at her with a serious look. I want to act as a princess. Mo Zai-chan, sitting beside her, couldn't help looking at her with a very surprised expression. Are you certain? Of course. I've already chosen the outfit. It's bright red silk and satin. It's super beautiful. At this moment, Luo Qingshun once again saw the scene of a sea of fire. His face turned pale, and even his breathing became a little hurried. You've seen a ghost. Ling Luo was shocked to see a person's face turn from red to pale. Don't talk. Luo Qingshun frowned. She saw a person in red struggling in the sea of fire. The fire was too big to see his face clearly. She groaned and looked at Ling Luo. Don't go. Don't participate in the performance. Why? Ling Luo's expression turned grave when she saw her serious expression. Don't ask. In short, even if you have to go, don't wear red clothes. Luo Qingshun let out a long sigh of relief. It's good. It's a good thing I saw it. What did you see? Ling Luo looked at her face, and her curiosity was piqued. I saw that your forehead is turning black. There will be a great disaster. Luo Qingshun revealed a smile that she hadn't seen in a long time. In short, listen to me. Ling Luo looked at her. She didn't believe in metaphysics at all before, but now she firmly believed in it. Chapter 1706. 2 days later, the school celebration. Ling Luo gave up on the school celebration performance and wore a set of golden clothes, seriously planning on warding off evil spirits. Luo Qingshun saw her sparkling golden appearance and couldn't help laughing. You really look like a golden Buddha? Luo Qingshun touched the material of her clothes. It really was made of golden thread. I'm much more expensive than a golden Buddha. Ling Luo pointed at her clothes and said, These clothes are worth over 7 figures, all right? Mo Zai-chan looked at her clothes and didn't forget to say, You will definitely be the center of attention today. Humph, humph, humph. Ling Luo gave 3 proud snorts. I was the center of attention in my red clothes, but now I'm giving it to someone else, all right? Luo Qingshun seemed to have thought of something, and her brows trembled as she said, Who was the one who replaced you as the princess? How would I know? Ling Luo shook her head, looking confused. After a while, a person wearing a large red robe came out. She had heavy makeup on her face and attracted everyone's attention. Damn, it's actually her. Ling Luo looked at Pei Dan not far away with a displeased look and angrily stomped her foot. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and looked at Pei Dan not far away. She had heavy makeup on, dark eyeshadow, and fiery red lips. Her lips curled into an unknown smile. She couldn't help looking at Luo Qingshun with eyes filled with hatred. Actually, rather than saying that she hated Luo Qingshun, she hated this unfair world even more. Why were some people born with a golden spoon, while others were poor and had nothing? Since she was young, she spent twice as much time studying compared to others. She woke up early and worked late, gritting her teeth no matter what she did. She used her own strength to enter Star University and used her charm to win the heart of the school hunk. She had suffered for the first half of her life. Why was it ruined by a rich girl like Luo Qingshun? Why was she the one who was humiliated? Why was she the one who was ridiculed? No, she wasn't willing. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes as she looked at her, as if she could see the determination in her eyes. Qing, quickly come over. I've left 3 seats in the first row. Ling Luo waved her hand at her. Luo Qingshun knit her brows and walked over to Ling Luo. She pulled her up from the chair and said, We'll sit in the back row near the door. Although she was relieved that she had changed Ling Luo's ending, she didn't know if it would change the trajectory of the future. In order to watch the celebration, she decided to sit in the back row. Why? Ling Luo looked at her coquettishly. It wasn't easy for me to get this seat. It's too crowded in front, the air isn't good. Luo Qingshun said this while pulling her back. Their young master Mo Zai-chan had already chosen a seat in the back. She didn't need to worry at all. Forget it. Ling Luo pouted. Anyway, I don't want to see that girl's performance. Luo Qingshun saw her aggrieved appearance and softly patted her head. You've always been a princess in our hearts. Humph, next time. I'll definitely let you play the princess next time. I'm already in my 3rd year of high school. Ling Luo proudly said, I don't have much time to waste. Should starting. Luo Qingxuan saw that coaxing didn't work, so she used another trick. Chapter 17:07. The lights on the stage dimmed. They weren't unfamiliar with the first performer, Jiang Iliang. Next, let's give the stage to the school hunk and raise your ears to this. Write a poem for you, all right? Write a poem for you. Stay still for you. Do the impossible for you. Learn how to play the piano and write lyrics for you. Lose my mind for you. Write a poem for you. Stay still for you. Do the impossible for you. Play all the love songs for you. I forgot to say the most beautiful one is your name. It had to be said, Jiang Iliang's voice was very good. It was a cold voice that had a bit of warmth to it. This kind of love song really suited him. Mo Zhe Chun on the side softly took her hand and said with a bit of pride in his voice, Your boyfriend sings better than him. Feeling his tightly held hands and hearing his slightly proud voice, she watched him raise his hand to softly pat her head. It really was warm. Pa, 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 pa. After the song ended, there was applause from the crowd. It was like after Jiang Iliang broke up with Pei Dan Dan, his popularity had returned to its peak. Although it was still a bit worse than Mo Zhe-chan, it was much better compared to before. It really is a very good voice. The host spared no effort in praising. You really are Star Royal's school hunk. Jiang Iliang took the microphone and said with a faint smile, This song, I want to give it to a very important person. When Jiang Iliang said this, his eyes fell onto Luo Qingxuan. Instantly, the memories of the previous host flashed in her mind. There wasn't any warmth at all, there was only bitterness. That year, the previous host was 12. She especially liked Jiang Iliang back then, falling in love with his appearance and his voice. But Jiang Iliang didn't care about her at all. Even her most humble birthday wish didn't come true. She vaguely remembered that there was a heavy snowfall that year. The elders asked her what she wanted, and she said with an excited look, I want to hear Iliang sing. How about write a poem for you? I really like it. Just one, please. When the elders were praising her for being sensible, Jiang Iliang left her birthday party without looking back. But today, he sang this song on the stage. Wow, that person must be very happy. Pei Dan Dan, who was not far away, was stunned when she heard the host's words. Could it be that Jiang Iliang was talking about her? She remembered that in the past, he had also sung songs for her very affectionately. Yes, she was once my fiancée. Jiang Iliang looked at Luo Qingxuan and completely ignored Mo Zhe-chan sitting beside her. He said to everyone, I will get her back in the future. Thump. Pei Dan Dan felt as if something had broken in her heart. It was very light, but it was very painful. Ugly world, ugly human beings. Since her life had already fallen into a dark realm. Then, let everyone be buried with her. The next second, the host immediately said, Looks like our school hunk Jiang is very confident. Of course, I know she still loves me. He answered confidently. After that, a gentle voice filled with jealousy sounded in Luo Qingxuan's ears. You still love him? Luo Qingxuan was stunned before raising her right hand. I don't. I only like you. Heaven and earth can be my witness. In an instant, he gently shook his raised hand and said, Confession received. Chapter 17:08. Hearing the notification from the system, she was both happy and worried. She was happy that she would finally be loved, and she was worried that the world would collapse. But everything was going too smoothly. Backstage, Pei Dan Dan in her red dress tightly clenched her fists. Her heart was filled with hatred that could explode at any moment. Next, let's enjoy the ancient costume performance, deep palace poetry. Clap, clap. The bustling applause sounded, but it stopped abruptly the moment Pei Dan Dan walked out. No one was willing to clap for her, not even willing to watch her performance. Luo Qingxuan, who should have been the target of public criticism, became Pei Dan Dan in the end. The entire Deep Palace Poetry crew was a bit embarrassed. They wanted to use Pei Dan Dan's recent public opinion to create a wave of popularity, but they never thought that the ending would be different from what they imagined. How about we don't act? The little girl in the orange dress, standing on the side, angrily said. This was her first time being looked at with disdain, so she was a bit afraid. You don't have to act just because you say so. The lead of this play is me. Pei Dan glared at her with a sharp look in her eyes. As soon as her voice fell, she entered her own state and began to perform the deep palace poetry. She was playing the role of an aloof princess who had been pampered since she was young, growing up in the palm of the hand. Today will be my wedding day. Prince of the Nihility country, please protect me. I will be your most beautiful bride. Pei Dan was acting out a one-man show on the stage. She completely changed the lines, making it so that the people around her couldn't follow up at all. Everyone was a bit embarrassed, but she wasn't affected at all as she immersed herself in the role. You, how can you do this to me? You said we would be together forever. You said we would be together in this life. Why did you lie to me? She muttered to herself. Sparkling and translucent tears fell from her eyes. Her empty eyes were filled with despair. Jiang Iliang, sitting in the first row, saw her like this, and he felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart. After all, they had loved each other before, but now things had changed. After that, the sad scene changed as she said through gritted teeth, "But why is it that everything I used all my strength for was taken away? Why?" She knelt on the ground, looked up to the sky, and roared. Since the heavens are so unfair, since the person I love is destined to go to someone else, then let me ruin all. Those who have laughed at me, bullied me, wronged me, and cursed me. Today, I will go to hell with you. After saying this, Pei Dan pressed the remote control of the time bomb in her sleeve. There was no light in the surroundings, and glass shards fell from above. Screams rang out, and the air was filled with the thick smell of gasoline. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and looked at Pei Dan on the stage, frowning. She stood in the middle of the fire and laughed maniacally. Her eyes were sinister as she looked in her direction. It was like a provocation, like a disdain. After all, no matter rich or poor, everyone was equal at the moment of death. Whether it was heaven or hell, she no longer cared, because in this life, she had lived too hard. Everyone fled in a panic. The exit had long been flooded by the powerful flames, and the chandelier on the ceiling was on the verge of collapse. Chapter 1709. Be careful. Mo Zai-chun quickly pulled her into his embrace, and the chandelier fell onto his back. But he didn't even make a sound. But Luo Qingshun could feel his strong heartbeat and fast breathing. This was her first time feeling his nervousness. She had never felt it before. As expected, what should happen would happen. It was a good thing that she chose a seat near the back. Come with me. Mo Zai-chun slightly pursed his lips. He took Luo Qingshun's hand while not forgetting to say to her, hold on tight to Ling Luo. In that instant, there was a strange warmth that filled her heart. His personality was different from most of the male leads. He had his own unique personality. Sometimes he was black-bellied, sometimes he was arrogant, but his IQ and EQ were off the charts. In this moment of crisis, his mind wasn't just thinking about their safety, but also her friend. Ling Luo was clearly stunned. Mo Zai-chun's words had moved her. Although she had seen many things, this was her first time seeing this kind of scene. After all, she was a girl, so her heart was actually very flustered. She was afraid of being left behind, afraid of being alone in the sea of flames with no one to save her. Luo Qingshun tightly held Ling Luo's hand. I'll hold on to you, don't be afraid. Mo Zai-chun's sense of direction was very good. Although there were a few panicked students who charged at him like zombies, he could easily dodge them. The two biggest doors have been tampered with, so bend over and try not to breathe. We'll go through the fire door on the side, trust me. All right, Cuckoo, I believe you. Luo Qingshun nodded and followed closely behind Mo Zai-chun. Even in the darkness, she didn't feel any panic. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 100%. Mo Zai-chun's brows relaxed, and he focused 120% as he said to her behind him, I won't let you die. The wedding hasn't been held yet. How can you die? In the next second, Pei Dan, who had been completely engulfed by the fire, raised the microphone and shouted, Listen, Everything you've encountered today is because of Luo Qingchun. She had everything, but she wanted to snatch away the most important thing to me, leaving me with no hope at all. She deserves to die, and all of you will be buried with her." When Luo Qingchun heard this, she only felt a buzzing sound in her head. She didn't think that Pei Dan Dan hated her to this extent. He did not forbid his own life in exchange for perishing together with her. This was the first time she had met a female supporting character with such an obsession. No wonder the system would say that the plane would collapse originally. He was a person with the heart of a saint, but after such a huge personality change, he became such a ruthless person. It was truly chilling. She didn't seem to have done anything, but she also seemed to have done something. But in the end, this story had come to such a tragic end. Don't listen to her. Some people look kind on the surface, but there are demons living in their hearts. Mo Zhe Chun tightly held her hand and said, "I have a pair of eyes that can see through demons." As soon as her voice fell, she quickly moved forward while saying with a faint smile, "Then what about me? Do I have a little demon living in my heart?" When they saw the escape door, he slowly turned and looked in her clear as water eyes. "Luo Qingchun will always be an angel in my heart. Since the first time we met, she has been. Can you two not be so lovey-dovey in such a dangerous place? Don't you see the 800-watt light here?" Pong. Chapter 17:10. When the explosion happened, she could vaguely feel Mo Zhe Chun tightly protecting her as he kept whispering in her ear, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's fine, it's fine." It was gentle and affectionate, with a soft voice that was filled with pampering. When she was surrounded by happiness in this dangerous time, the system's notification sent her to the 18th level of hell without any warning. System notification. The space and time crack created by the collapse of the world has allowed a reincarnated person to enter. The host and the supporting female lead will switch identities from this second. After a mechanical monologue, it didn't forget to add a sentence. "Host, you can do it. No matter who you are, the system will always be by your side." Luo Qingchun felt her eyelids becoming heavier and heavier. She screamed in her heart, but there was no response. There were only 4 words that kept echoing in her mind. "Switch identities. Switch identities. Switch identities." She had finally made a comeback and walked out of the abyss of suffering step by step. She had left the scum and met her male god. She had finally gotten rid of all the bad things and walked on the path of life. Now, he was casually saying that the plane would collapse. Switch identities? Ding, affection has decreased by 100%. Mission completion rate is now 0%. Hearing this sad notification, Luo Qingchun knew that she and Pei Dan Dan had already switched identities. Accurately speaking, it should be a soul swap. As for whether the other side was Pei Dan Dan, a reincarnated person, or a reincarnated Pei Dan Dan, it was no longer important, because the gears of fate seemed to be on the supporting female lead's side this time. After a week, the air was filled with the smell of formalin. When she regained consciousness, she felt intense pain all over her body, so painful that she couldn't breathe. Opening her eyes with difficulty, she saw a narrow room, but it was clean and tidy. The warm sunlight fell onto her face, alleviating her pain a bit. Sitting in front of her was a little girl who looked to be around 10 years old. Seeing her open her eyes, the little girl excitedly stood up and said, "Grandfather, grandfather, the mummy auntie has woken up." "Mummy? Auntie?" Luo Qingchun was depressed, but her whole body was in so much pain that she couldn't move. She could only silently say in her heart, "Baby is a fairy. Host, why are you so shameless? I'm already in such a miserable state. Can I find some joy in my misery? Should I cry and rush back to the Luo family to ask Pei Dandan to give me back my identity?" Ding, the host has been counterattacked. As long as you successfully obtain 100% favorability from a male lead, you can take back your identity. Using this body? With this face? System baby, are you kidding me? After she silently said this in her heart, the system went silent. Creak. The wooden door opened, and an old man with a white beard came in. The moment he saw Luo Qingshun, his pair of old eyes instantly became bright and spirited. Ayu, go out and boil the medicine for your sister. You're not allowed to come in before Grandpa allows you to. Yes, Grandpa. Ayu was very polite as she bowed to Luo Qingshun and said, Big sister, rest well. It was a huge mistake just now. Luo Qingshun rolled her eyes and couldn't make a single sound. With a creak sound, the wooden door was closed. Chapter 17:11. Luo Qingshun looked at the old man's eyes and frowned slightly. Miss Luo, my name is Mu Wang. I have lived in this world for exactly 100 years. He sighed softly and said to Luo Qingshun, To tell you the truth, I am a fortune teller. Luo Qingshun didn't speak and listened carefully to Mu Wang's words. It seemed that God was not completely on Pei Dandan's side. She might still have a chance. My granddaughter has called you. This year is her 10th birthday. Mu Wang looked at her pleadingly. She will have a big challenge this year, and it is impossible for her to overcome it by herself. But I know that Miss Luo has the ability to help her through this disaster. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but found that her throat was so dry that she couldn't make a sound. Don't worry. Mississippi, listen to me. Mu Wang took a mirror and put it in her hand. I will return to chaos in a few days. I hope Miss Luo can help me take care of you on account of my weak help to you. Quang Deng. The medicine bowl in Ayu's hand fell to the ground at this moment. Her eyes were full of tears, and she said with red eyes, Grandpa, don't leave Ayu. Ayu can't live without Grandpa. Luo Qingshun looked at them with a touch of mist in her eyes. Time is full of talents. It was not a strange thing for this person called Mu Wang to have such achievements. But all of this was too sudden for her, and it was too difficult. Half a month later, she took off the gauze. Her face was full of bumps and hollows, and she didn't look like a normal person at all. A few days ago, she felt that her whole body was wrapped like a mummy, which was very scary. Now it seemed that she was really much more beautiful at that time. Sir, Luo Qingshun cleared her throat and looked at Mu Wang. I want to go to H country. Help me prepare the ticket. I will go with me. Okay, Miss Luo. After saying this, he didn't forget to add, Thank you, Miss Luo. There's no need to thank me. A drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring, let alone a life-saving grace. Luo Qingshun gently shook her head and said, Moreover, you saved me because you knew that I was Luo Qingshun. This already surprised me. Then I'll leave it to you. Don't worry. I will definitely let her see you this early. Luo Qingshun looked at Mu Wang and said, The road ahead is long. Have a safe journey. That night, Luo Qingshun left City A with another identity. In fact, in the past half a month, even if she didn't pay attention to the outside world, she more or less heard some things about the fire. That fire had killed 78 Starry School students and injured more than 600 people. Among them, more than 200 were seriously injured. Explosions, trampling, suffocation, and other causes of death, and the culprit had been turned into pieces in the final explosion. Even his corpse couldn't be found. No one knew that this corpse had actually been saved by Mu Wang, because at that time, he had snuck into Starry School to find the last chance of survival for his granddaughter. Because he was about to leave this world and return to the chaos, he could no longer protect the little girl. But this year was the biggest disaster of her life. It was a disaster that she couldn't avoid no matter what. The plate of godhood told him that only Luo Qingshun could save his granddaughter. If she agreed, then Ayu could be saved. Chapter 17:12. On the plane, Luo Qingshun was wearing a black windbreaker as she held the silent Ayu in her arms. Ding! 5,000 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for 1 million yuan. This was the money she exchanged from the system for the plastic surgery. If she used this face to take back everything that belonged to her, it would be too hard. Then again, this face wasn't hers to begin with, so the plastic surgery was already being polite to the original owner. Big Sister Qing, did Grandpa go to a very far place and never come back? Ayu had been very obedient after getting on the plane. Even when she separated from Mu Wang, she didn't cry and just kept crying. In Luo Qingchen's eyes, she really was strong. He went to a very, very far place. Luo Qingchen softly patted her head and said, "But he will still protect you. He will always protect Ayu." Ayu pursed her lips, and her hands softly grabbed her arm as she said, "Big sister, you don't need to comfort Ayu. When I first saw Big Sister, I thought you were an old Annie and even spoke rudely to Big Sister. Actually, Grandpa had taught her to be polite to people since she was young. She had been too excited that day and forgot herself. It's fine. Children's words carry no harm." Luo Qingchen shook her head and said, "Actually, my fate is also a mess. We'll see what happens in the future. But I can promise you that as long as I don't die, I won't let anyone hurt you." They arrived in H country at 10 at night. When the doctor saw her appearance, he said that he wanted his teacher to do the surgery. He came from H country's most famous plastic surgery doctor, Mr. Shang Tian. The plastic surgery took close to 30 hours. When they left the operating room, Mr. Shang Tian said to her, "The surgery was very successful. This will be your new life." It was probably because the anesthesia hadn't worn off yet, so the words that entered her ears were very vague, but she still heard them. But she wasn't happy or excited. For her, this was just preparing to return to a city. Other than this, there was also her identity. Ayu had been by her side the entire time, so much so that when she was asleep, she even dreamed of her. It didn't seem like a dream, but more like an omen. The whistle of the train sounded beside her ear, and a pair of snow-white hands pushed Ayu off the platform. "Ah!" She shook her head and instantly woke up. Her forehead was full of sweat. It seemed that what Mu Wang said about Ayu's calamity should be this. "Sister, what's wrong?" Ayu poured a glass of water for her. Her petite hand gently touched the gauze on her face and said, "Sister has become a mummy again. It's so intimate." Luo Qingchen raised her hand and took the glass of water. She gulped down a few mouthfuls and said, "Thank you, Ayu." "Sister, you don't have to thank me." Ayu shook her head obediently and said, "Ayu sent Grandpa away. In the future, there will only be sister. Grandpa said that from now on, elder sister and I will depend on each other." Luo Qingchen looked at Ayu's clear eyes, and the corners of her mouth outlined a faint smile. She said, "Ayu, there won't only be me in the future. When we return to China, I will send you to school. You will meet many friends, and there will be people who like you." Speaking of this, she was stunned for a moment, and her eyes unconsciously became misty. Suddenly, she missed the person who liked her a little. "Sister, what's wrong?" Ayu rolled her eyes and asked, "Are there many people who like you?" There was a silence after a long time. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said, "In this world, I only need one person to like me. When we return to China, I will take you to see him." Chapter 17:13. Half a month later, in front of a big mirror, she took off the gauze on her face bit by bit. What came into view was a brand new face. It was not Luo Qingchen, nor was it Pei Dan Dan. Sister Qing is really very beautiful. With a sweet smile, Ayu clapped her hands and praised. Little did she know, Luo Qingchen poured cold water on her. What's so good about artificial beauty? Although there was still a gap between this face and the original owners, it was good that it was on the pure route. It looked much better than Pei Dan Dan. No matter. Sister is the best." Ayu took her hand and said, "Are we going back now?" She narrowed her eyes with deep indifference. "It's time to go back." At the same time, Luo family's villa. On the 35th day since Pei Dan Dan became Luo Qingchen, everything went so smoothly, so perfect. A month ago, when a huge explosion sounded in her ears, she thought she went to hell. Unexpectedly, here it was indeed heaven. The moment she opened her eyes, what appeared was a handsome face that seemed to bewitch the world. At that moment, Pei Dan Dan felt that she finally had a chance to live. However, that person called out, "Qingchen." That was the name she hated the most in her entire life, in this life. At first, she was confused, then she quickly sorted out her thoughts. She laughed like crazy in her heart. She actually counterattacked like this. She had everything that Luo Qingchen had. Her identity, her status, her beauty, and the man who held her in the palm of his hand. It turned out that God saw her pleading and finally stood on her side. "Miss, are you feeling better today?" It was Aunt Lynn who came into the house. She came in with the freshly stewed abalone and shark fin porridge, the aroma overflowing. These days, she had been eating these delicacies, and she was a little tired. She furrowed her brows proudly and asked, "Young Master Mo didn't come today?" "Yes." Aunt Lynn nodded and answered truthfully. "Got it. You can leave after putting down the things." Pate Dan rolled her eyes. "If Master Mo isn't here, don't come in." She didn't know why, but since she had the identity of Luo Qingshun, she looked down on this kind of servant. She always felt that they weren't from the same world. The things she had, her net worth of over 100 million, it was a position that these maids could never reach. Dan ate the abalone and shark fin porridge as she sent a message to Mo Zhe-chun. She didn't say much, she just asked what he was doing recently. After all, he hadn't come looking for her. Ever since the day she slapped the servant in the house, she had never come again. Could it be that Luo Qingqin's personality? Violent, unreasonable, and arrogant? Wasn't? She felt that her role was very profound, and she had performed it perfectly. "DD." After a few minutes, Mo Zhe-chun replied, "Of the of Jean by ye know." Concise, there was no superfluous words. She suddenly felt a bit angry. Could it be that Luo Qingqin had always been this cold-faced before, sticking to Mo Zhe-chun? Hee. It really was her style. Didn't she also stick to Jiang Ilyang like this before? When she thought of this, she frowned and shook her head ambiguously. No, Mo Zhe-chun didn't have this kind of attitude when she woke up. Chapter 17:14. It was already late winter when they returned to a city. In December, the sky was filled with snow and the air was cold. "I'm back." Standing at the gate of Star School, she was wearing a black coat and her eyes were absolutely cold. Even if it was dark in front of her, even if her head was bleeding, she would never turn back. "Sister Qing, is this your previous school?" Ayu blinked her clear and bright eyes. Luo Qingqin nodded and said, "Since I'm back, I won't use the original name." Looking at the police cordon, Luo Qingqin's eyes became deeper. "Then what is Big Sister's name?" Ayu tilted her head and looked at her with a cute face. Luo Qingqin narrowed her eyes and thought for a bit. "How about wine?" Good. It's still Big Sister Qing." Luo Qingqin held her hand and nodded, not saying a word. A pot of wine, a night's thought, a lifetime of mountains and rivers, a single person. At 6:30 in the evening, she rented room C-103 of the Shuro Villa. It was $23,000 a month, and she used the remaining money to pay the rent. Not for anything else. This was the only way to get close to Mo Zhe-chun, because next door was the Mo family's villa. Although she knew that Mo Zhe-chun should be at the Luo family with Pei Dan, who had exchanged souls with her, but she still took a bit of luck. "Big sister, the house here is really big." It was Ayu's first time seeing this kind of mansion. Her eyes sparkled like she had seen a new continent. "Ayu, come here," Luo Qingqin said with a chuckle. "Big sister will take you to buy clothes tomorrow. You have to sign up the day after tomorrow." Ayu was still young after all. If she had to go out and do something, she wouldn't feel assured leaving her alone at home. After all, she had promised Mu Wang to take care of Ayu. Ayu's expression was a bit distressed as she pouted. "Do I have to go?" Before she was 10, she didn't have the ability to go to school. Although her grandfather had abilities that normal people didn't have, he never used this ability to make money. He said that most things were hard to go against. Ding-ling, ding-ling. The doorbell rang, and Luo Qingqin couldn't help but frown. She had just moved in today, so she shouldn't know anyone. When he opened the door, he saw a little girl about 9 years old. Her eyes and eyebrows were very beautiful, and she looked to be about the same age as Ayu. Not only that, but her facial features were also somewhat similar to someone. "Hello." The little girl bowed politely and said, "I saw you move here this afternoon. I'm a guest next door." Her voice was trembling a little, probably because she had been outside for too long. Her smooth little face was a little red. "Yes." Luo Qingqin looked at him and asked, "What's wrong?" I just went out to play in the snow, but when I rang the doorbell again, the housekeeper didn't open the door. Sister, can you help me take a look? Her every word was very polite, and it was obvious that she had a very good upbringing. Come in first. She opened the door slightly, but the other party had no intention of coming in. Uncle said that I can't simply enter other people's houses. The little girl said awkwardly, Then I won't disturb sister. Luo Qingshan heard this and silently said in her heart, Good sense of precaution. Then I'll go with you. Luo Qingshan waved to Yu behind her and said, Yu, let's go together. Chapter 17:15. Tonight's snow was really heavy. It was hard for a little girl to stay in the snow for so long before she rang their doorbell. Although Yu didn't have a thick down jacket, she didn't feel cold at all. Instead, the little girl who was holding her hand was shivering. Yu, why aren't you cold at all? Mo Tian looked sideways and gently grabbed Ayu's arm. You're wearing so little. I'm not cold. Ayu shook her head and said, When I was young and lived in the mountains with Grandpa, I wore even less. Luo Qingshan looked at Ayu and Mo Tian behind her, and a faint light flashed in her eyes. They were all born with different fates, but none of them forgot their original intentions. Unlike some people, it was really ridiculous. Luo Qingshan was outside the villa's gate, and she pressed the red doorbell. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings. There was no response, even after 10 rings. But when she pressed it a few more times, the electronic doorbell automatically sounded like a system. You are too busy at the moment. Please try again later. Or you can choose to enter the password. In an instant, Luo Qingshan showed a helpless expression. She turned to look at Mo Tian and asked, Little girl, you said that you came to this house as a guest. What's your name? I forgot to introduce myself. She looked at Luo Qingshan's eyes and answered very seriously. My name is Mo Tian. Sure enough, she was from the Mo family. No wonder she could be so humble despite having such a high status and identity. Okay, little Tian, I'm asking you, are you sure that the housekeeper was still at home when you came out? Yes, I'm sure. Mo Tian nodded and said, I've been playing in the snow in the front yard. If the housekeeper went out, he should have seen me. Is there anyone else at home? Grandpa and Grandma have gone abroad for a vacation. It's just me and Uncle. Your uncle? Luo Qingshan frowned slightly. She felt an inexplicable throbbing in her heart when she said these words. My uncle is super handsome. Mo Tian revealed a bright smile and said, Very, very handsome. If Luo Qingshan remembered correctly, Mo Jing only had Mo Zaichun as a son. As the name implied, the uncle Mo Tian mentioned should be Mo Zaichun. Ding ling ding ling. Luo Qingshan pressed the doorbell twice, but there was no sound from inside. On the other hand, the smart electronic doorbell password panel was blinking. Please enter the password. Please enter the password. Please enter the password. Damn, it felt like this electronic door was as arrogant as her system. There was simply no comparison. After pressing it a few more times, he didn't even want to prompt her that the operation was busy. He directly asked her to input the password. Luo Qingshan narrowed her eyes, and a series of numbers flashed through her mind. Finally, she stretched out her white right hand and entered 4 numbers on the screen. 0214. The password is correct. Welcome home, master. Why? Mo Tian, standing behind her, called out. She looked at her with a look of disbelief and said, Big sister, you're so powerful. Her uncle had never told her the password to the door. She had asked him once, and Mo Zaichun had only said, This is a secret that can't be said. Mo Tian blinked in confusion and shook her head as she looked at him in a daze. She felt that there was a big secret in her uncle's heart because his eyes were very complicated. Chapter 17:16. Uncle, you're back. Mo Tian threw herself into Mo Zaichun's embrace and rubbed her round face against him. The housekeeper is gone. Xiao Tian has been waiting outside for a long time. It's all thanks to the big sister next door. Mo Zaichun was wearing a moon-white sweater with dyed chestnut hair. There was a familiar aura coming from him that made her mind unconsciously tremble. His eyes fell onto the girl in the black sweater with a few snowflakes in her slightly curly hair. Raising his right hand, there was a door that had already been opened. He had personally set the password. No one other than him knew it. His parents and the housekeeper had used their fingerprints to enter. Only he had entered the password each time. Ayu softly pulled on her sleeve. She was a bit surprised before taking a deep breath and slowly turning around. She pursed her lips and put her trembling hands into her pocket as she looked at Mo. Zay Chun in front of her. You. When Mo. Zay Chun looked at her, he felt his heart skip a beat. There was a strange feeling that was very strong. He always thought that Pei Dan Dan was dead. The most important person in his life was no longer a threat to his life, but his heart felt so empty, as if something was missing. But at that moment, there was a strange feeling that the emptiness in his heart had been filled, standing in front of a completely unfamiliar girl. And this girl had miraculously unlocked the password to their door, just like when they had first met not too long ago. That kind of radiance, ding, affection has increased by 10. New mission completion rate is now 10%. Suddenly, the system appeared in her mind like a ray of holy light. She felt her heart skip a beat, and she was inexplicably nervous. If it wasn't for Mo. Zay Chun standing in front of her, she might have burst into tears. After all, she had experienced too much in the past month. But no matter what she had experienced, the change of identity, the pain of the wound, and the pain of changing faces. But no matter what, she gritted her teeth and endured it just to stand in front of him again. She didn't ask for radiance. She just wanted to enter his eyes. Facts proved that she had done it. The snowflakes fluttered, and there was a faint smell of snow in the air, with a trace of sweetness in the cold. Silence, silence, silence. It was a deathly silence, as if no one was willing to break this silence. Because it was inexplicably warm. In the end, it was Luo Qingchun who spoke first. Well, I just moved in next door. She nodded gently and said, the little girl came to me and said that she couldn't enter the house. Yes, yes. Mo Tan shook Missouri Zay Chin's hand coquettishly. I don't know where Mr. Housekeeper went. Xiao Tian kept ringing the doorbell, but no one answered. It was too cold, so I heard that a very cute person moved in from next door. Mo Tian was very good at talking. She was very obedient and had a sweet tongue. She was very likable. A little girl like her would definitely be loved by everyone when she grew up. Since Mr. Mo is back, I'll take you back first. In a few days, after I tidy up the house, I will invite you to be my guest. Luo Qingchun gently pursed her lips. She was so nervous that she wanted to flee. But in the next second, Mo. Zay Chun raised the leather wine bag in his hand and looked at her as he said, there's no time like the present. I just had a good bottle of wine from a friend. Chapter 17:17. Luo Qingchun was stunned for a while until Mo. Zay Chun came to her side. She came back to her senses and narrowed her deep eyes, looking at her with a faint smile. You're not coming in? Ayu raised her eyes and glanced at her. This was a look of wanting to visit. Mo. Tian quickly ran over and grabbed Ayu's arm. Come in and play. The housekeeper said that he bought a lot of Boston lobsters today. After saying this, she looked up at Mo. Zay Chun and said in a soft voice, Uncle, can I? Mo. Zay Chun gently patted her head and looked down at her with a gentle gaze. You can. Luo Qingchun looked at Ayu and pursed her lips. All right, but you have to go back early and tidy up your room. You have to get up early tomorrow to prepare for school. Ayu pursed her lips and looked at her with a happy expression. Thank you, big sister Qing. Luo Qingchun could feel the back of the youth standing in front of her stiffen, and his movements of taking off his shoes became a bit slower. Big sister Qing? He turned around and looked at her clear eyes. He felt a strange sense of familiarity, but this face and this pair of eyes, he had never seen them before. Cuckoo. Luo Qingchun was surprised. She cleared her throat and looked at her. I am Qingjio. This is my little sister Ayu. Mo. Zay Chun would never know how nervous she was. There were many things she wanted to say, but she couldn't say them. Actually, she knew that if she wanted to complete the mission, she had to use this identity to make Mo. Zay Chun fall in love with her again. But the system would never know that it was hard to fall in love with someone again, and it was hard to watch someone fall in love with you again. When they came in, Tian swayed left and right as she pouted her lips. The housekeeper really isn't home. Something happened to the housekeeper's house, so he called me and had me come back to pick you up. Mo Zaichen opened the fridge and looked at Luo Qingchen. Do you want cake? Luo Qingchen gave a slight nod. She watched as he took out a brand new strawberry cake from the fridge, not touching it at all. Luo Qingchen only felt her eyes turn red all of a sudden, and in her mind, she recalled the scenes of them being together. At that time, she always said that she liked to eat cake. After school, he would always buy desserts for her when they passed by the dessert shop. In the blink of an eye, only a little more than a month had passed. However, to her, it seemed like a very long time had passed. It was so long that she could count the days until she came back. However, when she really came back, she was somewhat at a loss of what to do. I bought it yesterday. I don't like sweets. Mo Zaichen didn't forget to carefully explain the date to her. But little Tian wanted to eat it yesterday, but Uncle didn't agree. Mo Tian glanced at the strawberry cake and then looked at Luo Qingchen and asked, Sister, can I eat this cake? It's not good for children to eat too much sweets. You can. Luo Qingchen cut Mo Zaichen off. Her lips curled into a faint smile as she looked at him and said, You said you would treat me to the cake, so I should have the rights to it. His eyes lit up and he slightly narrowed them. There was a faint sparkle in his beautiful eyes as he said, Of course. A bottle of 77 brandy that took an hour to sober up. When it entered the mouth, there was a bitter and slightly sweet feeling. Chapter 17-18. Qingjio, do you believe in fate? Mo Zaichen leaned back on the sofa, gently shaking the glass in his hand as a trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. Luo Qingchen didn't respond and just drank her brandy, as a faint mist appeared in her eyes. Mo Zaichen, sitting beside her, gave a self-deprecating laugh and drank all the wine in his glass. It's this late, and I let a stranger like you come to my house as a guest. I know what you're thinking. Luo Qingchen slightly knit her brows. She took a deep breath and used all her strength to calm herself down. But she didn't dare speak at this moment. If she spoke at this time, all her emotions would come crashing down like a flood. She knew that she couldn't cry. How could she cry before those evil people with evil intentions were defeated? But it's very strange. Mo Zaichen turned to look at her. His eyes were bloodshot, and there were faint tears in them as he looked at her. I felt that you were similar to someone, but it was just a momentary feeling. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 20%. He didn't know if it was because her eyes were too red or if it was because of that feeling, but there was a very strange feeling when they first met. That excitement from that moment was still in his mind. But the person he cared about so much, when she opened her eyes in the hospital, there was a strange sense of loss in his heart. There was always a kind of feeling that clearly wanted to welcome the happiness that belonged to him, but his heart was filled with loneliness. I'm called Qingjio. I can listen to your story. Luo Qingchen closed her eyes and poured herself another half glass of red wine. Her right hand touched her ear out of habit. It was definitely a signature action. Mo Zaichen was a bit surprised as a surprised look appeared in his eyes. He was stunned for 5 seconds before coming back to his senses. He gave a silent chuckle. I'm afraid it's the story of a scumbag. You might not be willing to hear it. Perhaps I. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said with a faint smile, I'm willing to hear it. Mo Zaichen told her the story between him and Luo Qingchen, from their accidental meeting to knowing each other to falling in love. Their love story didn't go that smoothly, but there weren't any twists and turns. But when happiness was about to arrive, he found that. He didn't love her anymore. He would even use his computer hacking skills to track her location, but now that he knew she was at home, he wasn't willing to look for her. The loneliness in his heart rippled bit by bit. Along with his disgust for himself, he drank to drown his sorrows. This is the love story of a scumbag. Mo Zaichen looked at Luo Qingchen beside him. Qing, what is Mrs.'s opinion of this? He didn't know why, but when he saw the girl's stunned expression, his heart that seemed to have been sealed in dust started to beat for some unknown reason. Her heart says his heart's heart, as heart's is his heart. He had turned into a scumbag, but he longed for this kind of heartbeat. It was uneasy, dangerous, and exciting. So, do you want to follow the path of fate, or do you want to follow your heart? Luo Chin didn't answer his question and asked him back. But the next second, Mo Zai Chin's words made her breath stop. He said, Chapter 17:19. Get married, get married, get married. These two words kept flashing through her mind. It was like a cursed nightmare that she could not shake off or escape from. He was going to get married. He was going to get married to someone who looked like her, but had Pei Dan's soul. At that moment, she felt that the only thing she could do was to reveal her identity. But the system stopped her without any warning. The plane of existence has already collapsed. If the host tells the male lead of her identity before he has a 100% favorable impression of her, it will bring about a death advancement to him. Death advancement? What did that mean? To put it simply, the male lead will keep encountering danger, and it will become more and more terrifying each time. Kwangdang. There is the sound of a wine glass falling, and the glass shattered all over the ground. One of the small shards pierced in her flesh. Bright red blood flowed out, but she didn't feel any pain at all. What's wrong? Mo Zai-chun pulled her up and looked at her with a nervous expression. His large hand held her shoulder, giving off a special aura that belonged to him. At that moment, seeing Mo Zai-chun like this, she couldn't help feeling a bit moved. He was a man with a high IQ and EQ, but when it came to love, he chose to go with his feelings. A great scholar who believed in science, he trusted his intuition on the most important path in life. I'm fine. Luo Qingchun shook her head and said, Maybe the alcohol isn't that strong, so my hand was a bit slippery. It seems like Miss Qingjiu isn't as her name suggests. Mo Zai-chin's eyes fell onto the wound on her palm. Wait for me. I'll go get the first aid kit. That? No need. Luo Qingchun said, It's just a small wound. Mo Zai-chun heard this, and his good-looking brows slightly knit. His slender fingers tightly held her wrist as he said, Stand there and don't move. Wait for me. Suddenly, that gentle and black-bellied youth felt like he was being possessed by a domineering CEO. It really felt like the first time they met. He always gave people a different feeling. This scene seemed to match the words in the book. I still like you. Like the wind, you walk 8,000 miles without asking when you will return. When she came back to her senses, Mo Zai-chun was already standing in front of her, carefully removing the glass shards from the meat in his hand. The moment he pulled it out, he raised his head to look at Luo Qingchun, but there was no change in her expression. It was probably because the pain was so low that there wasn't even the slightest change in expression. It doesn't hurt? Mo Zai-chun slightly knit his brows, feeling a strange pain in his heart. It was like he had heard people discussing the relationship between Luo Qingchun and Jiang Yiliang in the past. At that time, his heart ached for her stubbornness. It was a good thing that the truth was different from the rumors. She didn't like Jiang Yiliang. She liked him. But now, Mo Zai-chun was very clear that he wasn't willing to go to the Luo family. He wasn't even looking forward to their wedding. Luo Qingchun saw him lowering his head and shook her head as she asked, It doesn't hurt. After experiencing so many things in life, this kind of skin wound doesn't hurt at all, right? Chapter 17:20. It was already 10 at night when she came home. The white gauze in her hand still had the scent and warmth left behind by Mo Zai-chun. It was so familiar. You poured her a cup of water. She wanted to ask something, but she didn't dare speak. I know what you want to ask. Luo Qingchun softly patted her head. Actually, that strawberry cake was bought for me. Big sister, he's the one I was talking about. The man who only likes me in this world. Luo Qingchun looked at the gauze wrapped around her right hand, and her lips curled into a faint smile. Ayu sitting beside her was shocked. She looked at Luo Qingchun in a daze and said so. So the marriage that little big brother mentioned. She clearly remembered that when she was standing in front of the wooden house, she had heard her grandfather and big sister talk about this matter. She didn't really understand at that time. She only knew about the exchange of souls and didn't completely understand it. After thinking about it for a few days, She gradually understood that her big sister was forced to change identities with someone else. And the man that this person was marrying was actually the little big brother she just saw. Luo Qingchen looked at her bright eyes and said, "This little girl is quite smart. Muwang really taught her well. Ayu wasn't arrogant or rash, but she wasn't stupid or weak. She felt that she could see a bit of her own shadow on her, but she didn't lose her childishness." But Ayu looked at Luo Qingchen and said, "That little big brother said that in 3 days." "That's right, 3 days." Luo Qingchen heard this and said with a soft sigh, "Even if I have an invincible cheat, I can't reach 100% affection in 3 days. It really is hard for me this time." "Then, big sister, what are you planning to do?" Ayu didn't understand her words, but she could hear Luo Qingchen's difficulties. "I'll take it one step at a time." Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes with an aura that belonged to her. She said with a soft snort, "At worst, I'll do something shocking." The next morning, Luo Qingchen got up early. Because he had to send Ayu to school tomorrow, the system had prepared most of the materials for her. Because it was an additional mission, as long as he exchanged for small items and basic abilities, he would not need to deduct the exchange points, and it would not hurt his physical strength. This was the only good news the system had given her after so many things had happened. Originally, he thought that he would have time to think about how to use these things to counterattack. The development of the story was much faster than she had imagined. For example, as soon as she walked out of the house with Ayu, she saw the person she would never let go of in this lifetime. Pei Dan Dan. She still called her Pei Dan Dan in her heart because she was not worthy of the name Luo Qingchen. Zai Chen. That coquettish voice had a familiar timbre that she couldn't accept at all. Originally, it was such a beautiful and clear voice, but it was ruined just like that. Right now, her voice was a bit low, and the fire had caused irreversible damage to her throat. It was already very lucky that she could recover like this. Luo Qingchen held Ayu's hand and walked step by step towards the girl in the pink mink coat. Her makeup was very heavy, her eyelashes were long, and her skin was frighteningly white. But it had to be admitted that she was still very pretty. But the moment she turned her eyes and saw Luo Qingchen, her beautiful face lost its color. Chapter 17:21. She took a step back in fear. Luo Qingchen put her hands in the pockets of her dark brown coat as she calmly looked at Pei Dan Dan in front of her. She used to think that the previous host's face wasn't bad, but now she wasn't used to it. She suddenly understood Mo Zai Chen's conflicted heart, feeling that there was a dirty soul occupying a clean body. That kind of disgusting. Pei Dan Dan couldn't stop trembling at this moment. She immediately knew that the person in front of her was her original body. Although the appearance was very different, she could see the special scar on the neck. It was a knife scar. It had been personally cut by her big brother when she was young, almost cutting her main artery. It was a good thing that the heavens blessed her and she survived in the end. It was precisely because she had survived that she was able to stand here peacefully and replace someone's identity as the little princess who was doted on by everyone. She was about to get married, and although it wasn't Jiang Ilyang, it was another outstanding man. Since she had this identity, she found that Jiang Ilyang, who had been cold to her, would send her text messages from time to time. Especially in the dead of the night, most of them would say things like, "I miss you, give me another chance," and so on. But she didn't feel any joy when she saw this. Only anger. Filled with anger, Jiang Ilyang actually treated her this cruelly, falling in love with someone else. Kacha. The sound of the door being opened came from Mo Zai Chun, who seemed like he had just woken up. He was wearing a casual Givenchy outfit, and his brows were slightly knit, looking like he wasn't happy. Last night, he had a very special dream. The alternating between a beautiful dream and a nightmare had left a lingering fear in his heart. He only remembered the final words of someone in the dream. "Don't believe your eyes, believe your heart." "Why are you here?" His voice was a bit cold, with a trace of indescribable helplessness. Pei Dan Dan looked at Luo Qingchen not far away before looking at Mo Zai Chun. Even her breathing became a bit fast. She finally reacted. Luo Qingchen was actually living next door to her fiancé. No. How could this be? I just missed you, so I came to see you. Pei Dan pursed her lips and looked at Mo Zai-chan with a bit of panic. It's very cold outside. You won't let me in? Her voice sounded a little aggrieved, but it wasn't a normal aggrieved tone. Instead, it sounded more pretentious. At the same time, Luo Qingxin and Mo Zai-chan couldn't help knitting their brows. Mo Zai-chan saw Luo Qingxin from the corner of his eyes, and a strange feeling of wanting to draw a line with the girl in the pink mink fur coat filled his heart. In his eyes, this feeling was extremely vile. I'll get a coat. Wait for me in the garage. Mo Zai-chan narrowed his eyes. There's nothing to eat at home. Let's go out. There was not a single word of concern, nor was there a hint of heartache in his tone. Other than indifference, there was only indifference. Pei Dan wasn't the only one who could hear the indifferent tone. Even Luo Qingxin, who was standing at the side, could hear it. She gently pursed her lips, and a faint smile appeared on her face. She felt that she was strangely being pampered with this other identity. She couldn't tell what this feeling was like. She only felt a warm current spreading to her heart. Chapter 17:22. Pei Dan was stunned, and her heart didn't feel good. She wanted to say something, but she gritted her teeth and couldn't say a single word. Why did the heavens treat her like this? They actually gave her the identity of Luo Qingxin, and why did they let her come back? Why didn't she die? Big sister. Ayu gently patted her hand and said, What's wrong? Nothing. Luo Qingxin's lips curled slightly before she shook her head and said, Let's go buy some things. As soon as her voice fell, she took Ayu's hand and walked forward. Little did he know that the moment he brushed past Pei Dan was the one who opened her mouth. I know who you are, but I'm about to get married. Pei Dan gritted her teeth and pretended to be confident as she said, I advise you not to make any small moves because no one will believe you and no one will believe this amazing situation. Pei Dan was a smart person. She didn't have Luo Qingxin's memories, so she could only pretend to be confused with the aftermath of the fire most of the time. But the person in front of her did. She didn't know how Luo Qingxin changed her face, but she knew that she had her original memories. Face it head on. Don't be afraid. Luo Qingxin gave a cold snort before a sharp glow appeared in her eyes. After all, there's a saying in this world that the pavilion closest to the water gets the moon first. You, Pei Dan, you have to engrave your name in your heart. Luo Qingxin could feel Pei Dan's body tremble when she said this. She was probably very afraid. After all, if it wasn't for the mission requirement, she just had to explain it to everyone. Even if it was metaphysics, she was still someone with her own memories. Luo Qingxin didn't wait for Mo Zai-chan to come out before she took Ayu's hand and walked forward. For her, there was loss, pain, grievance, and unwillingness, but she was Luo Qingxin, the Luo Qingxin who could shine with any identity. In an elegant eye store, Luo Qingxin helped Ayu buy some school supplies and clothes. Ayu was very nervous. She sat upright with a little resentment and did not dare to take it. Grandpa is big sister's savior. I should give you these things. Luo Qingxin gently patted her head and said, Don't be shy. But Grandpa said that if I don't have anything, then I won't lose anything. Ayu raised her head and said, I don't want to lose anything, but Ayu has nothing, and she has already lost grandfather. Luo Qingxin looked at her earnestly and said, A person's life is one of constant possession and constant loss. Don't forget your original intentions. Only then can you reach the end. There was a wedding dress store across from the ice cream. Seeing the white wedding dress in the window, she suddenly thought of when Mo Zai-chan asked her if she needed to confess or accept his kiss. Memories of the past floated in his mind. Some were blurry, some were clear. But she remembered that he had said that there would be balloons, fresh flowers, a wedding dress, and a diamond ring for their wedding. Whenever she thought of this, she would feel a bit lonely. Eat quickly. We'll go to the nearby winery after we finish. Luo Qingxin tapped the table out of habit with her left hand. I suddenly want to drink again. Big sister is an alcoholic. Ayu smiled sweetly and asked, Does that mean that you can play with little Tian again tonight? How about we buy a strawberry cake? All right. Chapter 17:23. A bottle of 68 whiskey. She liked whiskey more than brandy. It tasted bitter and sweet, which was similar to her current situation. It was already 6 at night when she returned to the villa. The snow in the afternoon suddenly became heavier and the sky darkened very quickly. There was a vague figure standing under the street lamp. He wasn't wearing much, and there was a faint sparkle in his deep eyes. He slightly knit his brows, looking a bit anxious. Luo Qingchun slowly approached with a moon-white umbrella, which was the umbrella she had bought in the convenience store in the afternoon. After all, Ayu was by her side. She could call getting some snow, but Ayu couldn't. Seeing the familiar figure not far away, Luo Qingchun was surprised before moving forward. She only stopped when Mo Zechen's handsome face appeared in front of her eyes. She wanted to say something, but she found that she didn't know what to call him. Mr. Mo? Classmate Mo? Zechen? No matter what, it felt a bit strange. So she finally decided to call him Mr. Neighbor. Luo Qingchun held the umbrella in her right hand and touched her ear out of habit with her left hand. It's snowing so heavily. Are you waiting for someone here? Mo Zechen's deep as ink eyes deeply looked at her, with an unknown emotion in the sky, filled with snow. The reason was, when he went out today, whether it was eating or in a daze, his mind kept thinking of the scene of him meeting a strange girl for the first time last night. Every frown and smile, he couldn't get rid of it. He nodded, but his tone was completely different from this morning. Although it was just a single word, it gave people a feeling of gentleness. Luo Qingchun's brows trembled, and she suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable. She felt that the person he was waiting for was Pei Dan Dan. After all, she understood Mo Zecchen better than anyone else in this world. He wasn't the scum she said he was. The red wine bag hanging on her arm suddenly felt a bit heavy. All right. After thinking for a long time about what to say, she only said these 2 words in the end. It was concise, but there was an indescribable sense of loss. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 30%. Little did she know that in the next second, the system gave her a notification that stunned her. She raised her eyes and looked into his dark eyes. Suddenly, she felt inexplicably nervous. I'm waiting for you. In the wind and snow, he looked at her quietly. Each and every word was like a kind of redemption that entered her ears. At this moment, she had the urge to cry. There's a person in this world who likes someone based on his feelings. But this kind of feeling was so touching. Wait for me. I saw that you didn't bring an umbrella when you went out with Ayu this morning. So I quickly came back when it was snowing heavily in the afternoon. Mo Zechan gave a self-deprecating laugh. So you had an umbrella. I didn't have an umbrella when I went out. Luo Qingchun pursed her lips, but she couldn't hide the smile on her face. Her eyes narrowed like crescent moons as she looked at him and said, But I can't buy an umbrella. What you said seems to be right. Mo Zechan revealed a helpless smile. Being surrounded by these strange emotions, he suddenly felt that he had lost the intelligence of a normal person. Chapter 17:24. You bought wine. Suddenly, Mo Zechan felt the strange gloominess in his heart disappear. Unhumph. I have wine. Do you have story? As soon as Luo Qingchun's voice fell, Ayu beside her waved the cake box in her hand. I have cake. Does Big Brother have Xiao Tian? Mo Zechan saw their sweet smiles and couldn't help revealing a smile that he hadn't seen in a long time. There's a story and there's cake. This feeling made him feel that even if he was about to become the target of public criticism, he wasn't willing to break this peace. After half an hour of sobering up, Mo Zechan adjusted the temperature of the room to 24 degrees. Normally, he didn't like turning on the heater. He felt that staying in a cold place would make his mind clearer. Will it be cold? No. I only ate fruit for lunch, so I'm a bit hungry. Do you want to eat steak? Do you want me to try your cooking? I won't disappoint you. All right, I want black pepper juice. It was a very normal conversation, but it made people feel like they had known each other for many years, like they had been married for many years. There was a faint familiarity in the strangeness, as well as an indescribable comfort and warmth. After eating and drinking, the snowflakes on the rooftop fell to the ground. She held the teddy bear that Mo Zay-chan gave her, and a melancholy filled her heart. She suddenly understood why people said that drinking away one's sorrows was more sorrowful. She would think of many things when drinking, like scenes from a movie flashing in front of her eyes. After drinking, she would feel melancholy and her memories would freeze in the past, not dissipating for a long time. Chinjio, do you have someone you like? His voice was very soft, but Luo Qinchan could hear it clearly. Actually, Mo Zai-chan was very clear in his heart. When he asked this question, he was very nervous. This nervousness wasn't without a source, and it wasn't strange, but it was based on love. He wanted to know the answer, but he was also afraid of knowing the answer. Luo Qinchan heard this and didn't immediately reply. She slowly reached out her right hand to catch the light snowflakes, until the snowflakes fluttered in the wind and softly fell onto her palm. She blinked and looked at his face. She said word by word seriously, "I have someone I like. I like him very, very much." The surrounding temperature was very low, but her face was a little red. Suddenly, he wanted to do something. With his brain numbed by alcohol, he wanted to do something earth-shattering that someone had done before. Mo Zai-chen's eyes that were as deep as the sea dimmed. He was a bit disappointed and a bit frustrated. He took a sip of red wine and stared at her. "Are you with him? We're about to get married." Luo Qinchan slowly stood up with her hand in her pockets and walked towards Mo Zai-chan sitting on the sofa on the balcony before saying, "But he doesn't seem to remember me." The sudden unfamiliarity between the two worlds was nothing more than the relationship between the two of them. Mo Zai-chan was surprised. There was a familiar feeling that lingered in his heart. "So you two separated?" "No." She stood in front of him and gently shook her head. Her lips curled into a faint smile, and with lightning speed, he bent down. He kissed her. He saw her eyelashes tremble and her ears turn red. His heart throbbed so much that he couldn't control his emotions at all. At that moment, his rationality told him to push her away, but his emotions wanted to hug her. Chapter 1725. Ding! Affection has increased by 20. Mission completion rate is now 50%. It was like Mo Zai-chen's mind had been struck by lightning, instantly turning blank. Looking at the girl in front of him, saying the words he had said not too long ago, strange and familiar emotions mixed together, and all sorts of feelings formed. It seems like Mr. Mo hasn't thought it through yet. She pursed her lips and said, "You still can't forget the person you like?" She leaned against the balcony railing, and the cold railing passed through her sweater into her body. At this moment, only this kind of temperature could calm her restless heart. After an unknown amount of time, they looked at each other like this until a firework lit up the sky. The dazzling light shined in from the side, and Mo Zai-chan slowly said, "Apologize." "Unhumph." She immediately responded to him and drank all the wine in the glass in her hand. "I'm sorry. After all, confessing should be done by a boy and not a girl." He looked at her and said, "I used to like someone very, very much." "I know." She nodded with a faint smile. "I saw her this morning. It was the girl wearing the pink mink coat." Seeing her affection slowly increasing and seeing Mo Zai-chen's gentle appearance, she was strangely happy in her heart. It was probably a very sweet feeling, a sweetness that he felt with another identity. Mo Zai-chan was a bit surprised. He never thought that the girl in front of him would pay attention to the person beside him, caring about the person he used to love. Mo Zai-chan looked at her and gave a serious nod. "I still love her very, very much a month ago, but now I feel that. I don't seem to love her anymore." When he said this, his heart was very conflicted. He knew that such a simple sentence could make her think that he was a person with a certain personality. Scumbag, fickle, loving whoever he saw, but he didn't care that much. He wanted to use his true self to face the person in front of him. Luo Qinchan heard this and pursed her lips into a faint smile. "So you are this kind of person?" There was a smile on her face, and there was an unconcealable joy at the corners of her mouth. Actually, Mo Zai-chan would never know just how happy Luo Qinchan was right now. Mo Zay Chun couldn't hide the disappointment in his eyes as he looked at her and asked, "Isn't this the most special introduction you've heard in your life?" After all, when a normal person wanted to win a girl's heart, there were two principles that they had to respect. First, never mention their ex. Second, never talk about their flaws. But Mo Zay Chun seemed to have both of these points. If Luo Ching Chun didn't know his personality, she would have thought that this person wouldn't be a fool, right? This is indeed the most unique self-introduction I've ever heard. She raised her clear eyes and looked at him with a smile. "So what are your strengths?" "Good at scheming." Mo Zay Chun thought for a bit before saying these words. Luo Ching Chun cleared her throat and said, "What else?" "Very high EQ. What else?" Mo Zay Chun shook his head with a helpless smile. "I used to think that I was an infatuated person, but now I feel that I'm a scumbag. I really can't say what's good about me. This is my first time feeling defeated." "Stop." Luo Ching-chun felt that if she was joking with Mo Zay-chun, she might really have to apologize. "Confess." She blinked and said, "I'll give you the answers to all the doubts in your heart." Chapter 17:26. In the end, Mo Zay-chun didn't confess. Luo Ching-chun waited for a long time, but Mo Zay-chun didn't say anything. He wasn't as free as he was that day at Ling Luo's private club. There were many indescribable emotions in his eyes. In the end, he just softly patted her head, as gentle as before. "Wait for me. Before you give me an answer, I'll give you an answer first." This was Mo Zay-chin's promise to her, a promise of 60%. "So, can we still drink together tomorrow?" Luo Ching-chun pursed her lips, feeling a bit aggrieved. After all, she had agreed when he confessed to her. But now, Mo Zay-chin didn't. But if she jumped out of her identity, she felt that the person in front of her was that outstanding. Because he wanted to use a Mo Zay-chun who wasn't related to anyone else to accept her confession. "I heard you say that you're taking her to school tomorrow." Mo Zay-chun looked at her and said, "Send the two little friends off tomorrow, and we'll go see a movie." When she was with Mo Zay-chun before, he liked to take her to the movies on weekends. When she asked him, he said, "The atmosphere in a movie theater is very good because you're always focused on watching. You didn't even notice when I secretly held your hand." "What do you want to see?" Luo Ching-chun casually picked up her phone, and her eyes fell on a movie title. When she wanted to say it, Mo Zay-chun spoke first. "The 3 years that we missed." "How did you know what I wanted to say?" Luo Ching-chun was surprised, but there was a smile that was hard to hide on her lips. There was an indescribable feeling of telepathy spreading from the bottom of his heart. "It should be because you confessed to me," Mo Zay-chun said with a gentle smile. "Rest early today. I'll always remember your confession. No matter how bad of a person I am, I'll always be grateful to you." He was grateful for someone who appeared when he was at his most confused. Although his heart was still filled with complicated emotions, he had a direction to go in. Lying in bed all night, Mo Zay-chun looked at his phone from time to time, hoping that the sky would brighten up. He was suddenly looking forward to seeing the movie tomorrow. But what woke him up early in the morning wasn't the alarm clock, but rather a call from the Luo family. The person he once loved the most had gotten into a car accident. It seemed that on the way to find him last night, because of the heavy snow, she was uneasy and rear-ended a truck. She was still in the hospital. At 5:30 in the morning, he wanted to call the person next door, but he put down his phone. In the end, he couldn't escape the inexplicable darkness and was trapped within, in the corridor of the hospital. "What took you so long?" Mo Jing looked at him with a serious look and tightly knit brows. "Xiao Qing called you so many times last night. Why didn't you pick up?" In the Mo family, Mo Zay-chun could do anything, but he couldn't let down his lover. This was the only request the sunglasses had for him. Therefore, for a long time, he either didn't love, or if he did, the sunglasses would support him regardless of the cost. This was why when Mo Jing knew that Mo Zay-chun was interested in Luo Ching-chun, he took the initiative to look for Luo Ching-chun's parents. He felt that his son would be a very loyal person. He would always like the person he liked and wouldn't change his mind. But now, even the two elders of the Luo family could see his attitude towards Luo Ching-chun. It had changed too quickly. Chapter 1727. Mo Zhe-chun slightly knit his brows, and his deep eyes seriously looked at Mo Jing as he said, "Dad, I have something to say. If there is something, now is not the time to say it." Mo Jing looked at him, not planning on letting him continue. After all, he was his son. He could guess what he wanted to say, and he wouldn't allow this to happen. But Katja, when Mo Zhe-chun was about to say something, the door to the emergency room was opened. The doctor took off his mask and said, "Which one of you is the patient's family?" I am. Madame Luo's tears came down drop by drop with a worried look on her face. "The patient has lost a lot of blood and needs to be observed. I want to ask about the patient's situation." "Doctor, please speak." The patient's large wound was not caused by a rear-end collision, but rather a cut to the artery in her hand. The doctor looked at them and said in a heavy voice, "Has the patient's mental state been bad recently?" Mo Jing's expression changed when he heard this. He pushed Mo Zhe-chun in the direction of the two elders of the Luo family and said in a low voice, "Do you think we can't let her down?" The two elders of the Luo family heard what the doctor said, and their eyes fell onto Mo Zhe-chun. They shook their heads and said, "My daughter is about to get married. Her mental state is very good. Then it should be a sharp object in the car that accidentally hurt her." Mo Zhe-chun didn't say a word from beginning to end. He just looked out the window. It was pitch black, like the darkness before dawn. At 9:10 in the morning, Luo Qingchen called him for the first time, but he didn't pick up. At 10:10 in the morning, Luo Qingchen called him for the second time, but he still didn't pick up. At 12 o'clock in the afternoon, Luo Qingchen called him for the third time, but his phone was turned off. He missed his appointment like this without any warning. "Big sister, aren't we going to school today?" Ayu looked at her carefully dressed up in the mirror and said in an angry voice, "Big sister really looks good." After a while, she patted her head and said, "Of course we're going, but we can only go by ourselves." Actually, it would be a lie if she said that she wasn't disappointed at all. She was still a bit disappointed, but she knew that since Mo Zhe-chun didn't appear today, he must have encountered many difficulties. He must be trying very hard to walk towards her. It must be even harder than him. "Of course we're going." Luo Qingchen let out a long sigh of relief. She looked at her and raised the corner of her mouth. "Brother might be busy and can't come. Little Tion should be waiting for you at school." Sakura Elementary School. City A's key primary school. All the junior high schools in this primary school were aristocratic academies. Without status, it was basically impossible to enter. Ayu was able to enter this school because of the identity that the system had arranged. It was a brand new identity called CU. Ayu, you are finally here." Mo Tian walked up to her and grabbed her arm. "I've been waiting for you all morning." Uncle Bai didn't come with you?" "He even tried on the clothes last night." "I've never seen Uncle so smug before." Mo Tian's expression was very surprised since it was her first time seeing Mo Zhe-chun so nervous last night. Her uncle had always been as calm as Mount Tai, never panicking before. "Your uncle is busy and can't come." Luo Qingchen patted Mo Tian's head and said, "How about we have him treat us to a big meal next time?" Chapter 1728. On a weekday afternoon, there weren't many people on the streets of City A. The snow was very deep, and the snowflakes fell on her black sweater. She was like a beautiful scenery, attracting the eyes of people passing by. Black sweater, white snow. Holding the movie tickets tightly in her hand, she nodded slightly, and her eyes turned red unconsciously. Unconsciously, she walked to the entrance of the cinema. Looking at the couples, friends, and best friends, she seemed so lonely. Actually, at this time, what she should do is buy a family bucket and watch the 8 o'clock Korean drama alone at home, instead of walking into the cinema alone to watch the 3 years I missed. But she didn't choose the first option, but the second one. Just like that, she took the 2 tickets and walked into the theater alone. At the rightmost seat in the 7th row, she bought a set meal for 2, a glass of orange juice, and a glass of Coke. This movie was probably very popular, and the whole theater was full. Sitting on her left was a couple on their first date. The boy looked at the girl and said, "I don't know if you like to watch movies. I'm afraid you won't like it." The girl responded, "No, I like all the places you take me to. Luo Qingshun didn't pay attention to what they said next. She could only feel that they seemed to be very shy, and there was a slight strangeness and familiarity in their tone. In the past, she didn't like to drink Coke, but today, she wanted to feel the stimulation of carbon dioxide on her taste buds. Actually, with this kind of mood, the feeling of drinking it was not bad. The plot in the movie was a bit pretentious. It was about two couples who separated for 3 years for some reason. In these 3 years, they looked for each other, but couldn't find each other. It was a very sad love story, but she didn't feel that it was very sad at all. This kind of melodramatic love story was nothing compared to her legendary story that no one believed in. Moreover, the female lead was too weak. She was tolerant and didn't have any momentum at all. She felt so angry watching this movie. While eating the popcorn, he shook his head silently. She didn't know that in the next second, someone suddenly sat down on the empty seat on her right. Luo Qingshun didn't have time to turn her head, and a faint, gentle voice sounded with a hint of affection. The voice was very sweet, and it warmed her heart. "Can I drink this orange juice?" Luo Qingshun suddenly glanced sideways, deeply bumping into his deep eyebrows. His long arm wrapped around her body, and he took out a straw from the bag on the other side. He gently tapped her forehead and said, "Sorry, something came up, so I'm late." Luo Qingshun was a bit surprised. She felt that Mo Zai Chen's actions were very gentle, so gentle that it made it hard for her to hide her smile. "I thought you weren't coming." She put the popcorn in the middle and looked at Mo Zai Chen as she asked, "But how did you know I was here?" "Generally speaking, girls won't come at this time. But you're a special girl." He looked tired, but when he looked at her, there was a faint smile on his face. There was a very, very gentle feeling. If their souls hadn't been swapped, they would have been happily married. No, he was about to get married. Thinking of this, Luo Qingshun couldn't help but ask, "Are we really getting married the day after tomorrow?" Although it was difficult, it was a question that had to be asked. Chapter 1729. Mo Zai Chen's hand that reached for the popcorn paused as he seriously looked at her. "I won't get married because I know what I want." Mo Zai Chen, "I'm just a bit conflicted. It's not because of marriage." He raised his right hand and gently patted her head. "It's because of my character that I look down on myself. It's a very strange feeling." Mo Zai Chen's words were a bit incoherent, but Luo Qingshun could completely understand why he was this conflicted. "Do you still remember what I said?" Luo Qingshun rubbed his arm and said, "I will give you an answer. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. She was about to succeed. Facing Pei Dan Dan with 70% affection, she wasn't afraid of her at all. "Thank you for your answer." Mo Zai Chun picked up the popcorn and put it in her mouth. "The girl who wants to marry me was in a car accident." "What?" Luo Qingshun's first reaction was, did Pei Dan Dan know how to drive? Properly speaking, with her previous standard of living, getting a driver's license was a luxury. How could she drive herself? Although saying this makes me seem even worse, I still want to tell you. Mo Zai Chun put 2 more pieces of popcorn in her mouth before looking at her. "I feel that she's not the same as before. Rather, the feeling you give me is more like her from before. Actually, I don't know how to describe this feeling, but I like you." He didn't add her name and directly confessed. This time, there wasn't even a ring. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes as she looked at him. Flowers, balloons, wedding dress, and ring. Not a single thing can be missing. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. God knew how shocked Mo Zai-chan was at that moment. It was like time had gone back, returning to when they first met. "How could you? What about me?" After that, Luo Qingshun felt herself being pulled into a warm embrace without any warning. He hugged her so tightly that it was scorching hot. The soundtrack of the movie slowly played. The moment they hugged, the male and female leads finally found each other after 3 years. Luo Qingshun glanced at the movie and a faint smile appeared on her face as she muttered, "Actually, the plot is pretty good." At the same time, at the hospital, Pei Dan Dan was lying on the bed, her face pale. The 2 elders of the Luo family and Mo Jing were by her side. Only Mo Zhe-Chen wasn't there. Mo Jing's expression was very ugly. He had Mo Zhe-Chun personally by the kanji, but after 6 hours, he was nowhere to be seen. Pei Dan Dan's eyes were filled with disappointment. After all, this was a car accident that she had personally designed. But she didn't receive any pity from Mo Zhe-Chun at all. Why? Her calculations were just right. So why didn't her fiancé appear? Brother Mo, actually, we can tell what's going on between Zhe-Chun and Qingchen. Luo Gudu gave a sigh. He was a bit unwilling to see his daughter suffer this kind of grievance. So he said in an old voice, "How about we forget about this wedding? I don't want to." Pei Dan Dan heard this and immediately became excited. Her eyes opened wide as she said, "I want to marry him." God gave her such a good chance, letting her have everything. How could she miss out on such an excellent man like Mo Zhe-Chun? Chapter 17:30. When they came out after watching the movie, the snow had stopped. Luo Qingchun looked at Mo Zhe-Chun beside her and said, "If there really is something you have to take care of, you can go. I'll wait here for you." She knew that Mo Zhe-Chun didn't come today because of the pressure from his family. Pei Dan Dan's mind was as meticulous as ever. For her at this juncture, she could only give it her all, and there was no other way. Luo Qingchun could feel the change in Mo Zhe-Chun, so naturally Pei Dan Dan could feel it too. This seemed to prove something. Not all love was based on status and money. She had used Jiang Iliang to prove this to the previous host, but now she was proving it to Mo Zhe-Chun. Everything in the world had a cycle of cause and effect. No, he firmly shook his head. "Let's go. We'll pick up Ayu and Xiao Tian from school later." There was a patch of snow in front of them. He softly took her hand and walked forward. If they kept walking in this snow, their hair would turn white if they weren't careful. Mo Zhe-Chun thought this, and Luo Qingchun also thought this. They seemed very close, but also very far. But Luo Qingchun knew that as long as they worked hard to walk towards each other, no matter what kind of face or what kind of status they had, the fog would be lifted and they would see the most dazzling sunlight. That's right. They're about to get out of class. She pursed her lips and said, "I'm planning on bringing Ayu to eat hot pot tonight." Hot pot. Mo Zhe-Chin's brows relaxed a bit. "Can we bring 2 more people to eat?" Luo Qingchun was surprised as she looked at him with a bit of confusion. "You're not planning on going back for dinner tonight?" He gave a slight nod. "Can we stay at the neighboring Miss house for a night?" Before Luo Qingchun could react, Mo Zhe-Chun had already taken her away. His meaning was to stay at her house tonight. Although they had been this close before, they had only known each other for less than a day. Wasn't this progress a little too fast? See, Mo Zhe-Chun looked at her and pretended to be frustrated as he said, "Based on your expression, you don't seem very willing." In fact, when he made this decision, he had experienced a very intense struggle in his heart. For the first time as a man, he let himself be an irresponsible person. He had personally ruined the wedding that he had been looking forward to the most. He didn't even know how to explain it. There were many unanswered questions in his heart, but he had to do this because there was an indescribable obsession in his heart. He continued to pursue this obsession. She had also once asked herself what she would do if she no longer loved the person she loved now. He didn't dare to think about it, and he knew that there was no answer. "Even if I don't want to, you will still do it, won't you?" Luo Qingchun made a face at him and said, "Just think of it as me being kind and taking you in." Actually, this seemed to be quite good. If she could live like this for the rest of her life, she was willing to let Mo Zhe-Chun stay here. Standing at the entrance of the elementary school, Mo Zhe-Chun attracted a lot of attention. He was always dazzling no matter where he went. Big sister, uncle, Ayu and Mo Tian walked out of the school hand in hand. Without knowing why, this scene strangely made her feel warm. But while it was warm, she also felt a chill run down her back. At this moment, behind a certain cover, a person wearing branded clothes was looking in their direction with a sharp and sinister gaze. Chapter 17:31. Yes, Pei Dan Dan had secretly run out of the hospital. She had calculated when Mo Tian's class was over and wanted to weakly run out in front of Mo Zhe-Chun. But she never thought that there would be another person standing beside him, and this person was the person she hated the most in her life. Luo Qingshun. Pei Dan Dan muttered through gritted teeth. I want you to lose everything. I definitely won't let you be that happy. In that instant, the scene from before flashed in front of Luo Qingshun's eyes. There was the sound of whistling trains and rows of red, brick-colored railroad tracks. What is it? Mo Zhe-Chin noticed that something was wrong with her expression. He had seen the same expression on that girl's face before, but then everything changed. Now that it was a different person, she actually had the same expression as her. Nothing. Luo Qingshun shook her head and said, I might be hungry. She felt a bit panicked, so she came up with a very bad excuse. Mo Zhe-Chan was a smart person. He must have seen through it. But with his high IQ and EQ, he naturally wouldn't say it. Then let's go back and make hot pot. Mo Zhe-Chan looked at her and seriously said, If there's anything, you have to tell me. All right. When they returned to her house, they went through the back door and not the front door. Because at this time, the Mo family's villa was already lit up. Mo Tian seemed to understand something and didn't even ask anything. Instead, she obediently said, Then I want to sleep with Ayu tonight. Ayu happily nodded. All right. Luo Qingshun leaned against the sofa, watching the youth carefully preparing the ingredients in the kitchen. She also watched the two children laughing and felt that this kind of life was very comfortable. Girl, do you eat spicy food? Luo Qingshun was surprised. She tilted her head to look at Mo Zhe-Chun in the kitchen and said, Are you talking to me? Of course. Fool. Mo Zhe-Chun, who was wearing an apron, had a pampering look in his eyes. It was like he was looking at his wife, looking very gentle. Seeing Mo Zhe-Chun like this, she couldn't help blushing. Out of habit, he touched his ear. It was boiling hot. Why didn't you call me by my name? You should call me Lass. She bit her lip and said, I didn't react in time. Mo Zhe-Chun heard this, and a faint sparkle appeared in his dark eyes. He looked at her and said, I feel that the name Qingjiu doesn't suit you. You should have a more special name. His words were contradictory, but Luo Qingshun understood what he meant. Luo Qingshun looked at him and smiled gently. She didn't say anything and just kept smiling happily. Idiot. He turned to look at her and asked casually, Can you eat spicy food? No. Luo Qingshun shook her head decisively. Where's the green onion? No. He shook his head decisively again. Where's the coriander? No. She even knit her brows when she shook her head this time. And Mo Zhe-Chan said with a chuckle, The nutrition isn't balanced. Although he said this, he still brought out a very light hot pot without any chili, green onion, or coriander. Chapter 1732. Cheers. Luo Qingshun raised her glass. There wasn't red wine in the glass today, but rather Coke that was releasing carbon dioxide. A fragrant aroma assaulted his nostrils, causing his stomach to growl. Everything was so comfortable that she forgot the uneasiness in her heart. It was another night filled with stars, and there was a bit of snow falling from the sky. Ayu and Mo Tian hugged their dolls as they slept. Mo Zhe-Chan warmed a glass of milk for her, and the two of them sat in front of the skylight, looking at the moon outside. In the end, he still said the words in his heart that she had been waiting for a long time. I won't go to the wedding. And Mo Zhe-Chin's deep eyes darkened as he looked at her. Although you might find it shameful to say this, if I have to go, I want to hold your hand. Luo Qingshun's hand holding the glass of milk trembled, and her eyes turned red. She knew that for Mo Zhe-Chan to say this to her, he must have hesitated for a long time before finally deciding to follow his heart. After a while, he saw that Luo Qingshun didn't respond. He nervously said, Why aren't you saying anything? Did she think that he was fickle and didn't cherish her after getting her? Or did she think that he was a person who liked the new and hated the old? Actually, it wasn't strange that she thought this. After all, he also thought that he was this kind of person. But his feelings of liking had never changed. He told himself that if there was this kind of shameful change of feelings in the future, he would admit that he was a scumbag. No, I just feel very moved. Luo Qingshun took a sip of milk before looking at him and saying, Thank you for choosing me without knowing anything. Mo Zae-chan really is a very, very good person. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 90%. In the end, he was attracted to her again, no matter what time and space, no matter what world, no matter what identity. As long as she was Luo Qingshun, he could use his feelings to find her and use all kinds of methods. You wouldn't think that I'm a person who doesn't care about feelings. No. Before Mo Zae-chan could finish, Luo Qingshun cut him off. She looked into his dark as stars eyes and said, "You will never be the kind of person in my heart, but I can't promise you anything. I don't need it." Lass, Mo Zae-chan. Luo Qingshun softly called out his name. Her clear eyes trembled slightly as she said, "If you like someone, you should follow your heart and move forward. Because no matter how big the storm is, you won't encounter any obstacles." After a while, Mo Zae-chan raised his right hand and patted her head, pat, pat. This was a sleepless night, whether it was Luo Qingshun, Mo Zae-chan, Pei Dan Dan, or Jiang Ilyang. None of the four of them could sleep peacefully because tomorrow was going to be a grand marriage between the two big families of the city. In this wedding that caused a sensation in City A, the male lead had already disappeared for a whole day, and no one could find him. Pei Dan Dan was alone in her room, trying on the wedding dress designed by a gold medal designer from Milan. It was one of a kind. She had heavy makeup on, and her lips were flaming red. Her empty eyes were filled with endless hatred, as she once again hated this world. Chapter 1733. At this moment, she couldn't help thinking of the scene at Sakura Elementary School this afternoon. Mo Zae-chun had chosen to go with her in the end. Whether she was Luo Qingshun or Pei Dan Dan, whether she had a peerless face like Qingshun or an ordinary face, he could walk towards her step by step based on his feelings. Based on what? Pei Dan Dan kept shouting these three words in her heart. Why? She had carefully calculated and done all these things. She wanted to stand at the top, like a queen, emitting dazzling light. Just like Luo Qingshun in the past, she would be the center of attention no matter where she went. That kind of dazzling person. It was a pity that reality had slapped her in the face. She had this identity and still didn't get anything. At least she didn't get what she wanted. Not only that, it was stolen by the same person with such a lowly identity. She couldn't help being angry. She really couldn't help being angry. In the past, she was also a very kind person. She was forced to come to this point today. This wasn't her fault. It was always Luo Qingshun's fault. Based on what did she steal from her? At the same time, in the Jiang family, Jiang Ilyang was lying in bed looking at his recent WeChat messages with Luo Qingshun. Naturally, he didn't know that this person only had Luo Qingshun's face, but he felt a bit of familiarity and a bit of unwillingness. Without knowing why, after the fire at school, Luo Qingshun's personality was different from before. It wasn't clingy like before, and it wasn't cold like before. Rather, it was a bit familiar, a strange sense of familiarity. She would reply to his WeChat messages. Although she didn't reply to everything, she would at least reply. Sometimes she would complain to him, and sometimes she would ask for his care. He felt that facing the current Luo Qingshun, Jiang Ilyang couldn't resist at all. She wouldn't approach him, but she also wouldn't distance herself from him. Even if they were about to get married, she would still stand in the black and white area of friendship and love, drifting away. When nights slowly fell and the sun slowly rose, a city's biggest wedding began. Luo Qingshun was about to face her most important battle, so the sense of danger became stronger. It wasn't danger that belonged to her, but rather... In the busy scene, everyone was preparing everything, but the groom didn't appear. Mo Jing's face was very ugly because Mo Zae-chen's phone had been off for 3 days. Even in the final moment, he still didn't believe that the son he was proud of would be this irresponsible and leave this wedding. To him, this was something that he absolutely could not allow. "Brother Luo, you can be assured." Mo Zae-san said Luo-san was Luo T. Luo Gudu sighed softly and said, "Maybe my daughter doesn't have this fortune. Just leave the matters of the young people to them. This wedding, after all, she was his biological daughter." No matter how many resources he had in the business world, he was not willing to gamble with his daughter's happiness. Luo T Luo Luo's Luo 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 T Luo 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 on. Chapter 1734. Luo Qingshun never thought that Pei Dan Dan would use the Luo family's power to take a Yu away from Sakura Elementary School after her first class. When she learned this news, it was already noon. She and Mo, Zay, Chun rushed to the school, but the teachers didn't know anything. Sitting in the passenger seat of Mo, Zay, Chen's car, her heart was filled with panic, but her face was strangely calm. Because she knew that she couldn't panic. Pei Dan Dan was a smart person. She had the identity of the Luo family's young miss, so if it wasn't the last moment, she wouldn't kill someone or die together. Then why did she take Ayu away? Don't worry, I'll definitely find Ayu. Mo Zay Chen's thoughts were quickly turning. Actually, he didn't understand the current Luo Qingshun and didn't know what she was thinking. He could only use the identity of a bystander to figure out why she did this and what followed. Mo Tian sat in the back seat with tears falling down, but she didn't dare cry out loud. She blamed herself. If she had asked the teacher more about who had picked up Yu during the break, perhaps things wouldn't have gotten to such a tricky point. Although she was still a child, she probably cherished friendships far more than the ones between adults. After a minute, Luo Qingchen and Mo Zay Chen's expressions changed at the same time. The two of them said at the same time, "Train station." Mo Zay Chen looked at her with a look of surprise, because when he thought of this word, he had made countless assumptions in his mind and then eliminated them one by one. As the youngest professor at America's Aspen College, he thought that almost no one could do this complicated thing, because it was hard to guess where Ayu was, but he never thought that the girl beside him would blurt out this word. Without any hesitation, "How did you know?" He looked at her and couldn't help feeling surprised. He slightly knit his brows and said, "But I don't know what train station it is." He could deduce that Luo Qingshun should have taken Ayu to the train station because without harming her, it was reasonable to sell a child to an unknown village or town. But there were so many train stations in the city, so if they checked them one by one, there wouldn't be enough time. Luo Qingshun tightly knit her brows and pursed her lips as she said, "It should be a train station." In the future, what she heard was the sound of train horns and tracks. The system was right about something. What was supposed to happen would happen, and what was supposed to come would come. She couldn't go against the heavens. She couldn't stop the future from happening. But she could change the ending. "You," Mo Zaychen looked at her, and Yuchen looked at her. "Girl, you really do surprise me." This was the first time in his life that he admired someone so much. What kind of theoretical analysis did she use to calculate that Ayu would be taken to the train station? In a resting area that was filled with the smell of smoke. It was filled with the aura of poverty. This was the only green train that was running today. The ticket price was very cheap and the speed was very slow. It was especially for the poor, and even the waiting area was different from normal. Chapter 1735. Pei Dan Dan's clothes were very conspicuous in the waiting hall. There was a half-blind cripple walking in front of her, Ah Gang. When Ah Gang saw Pei Dan Dan, his saliva almost dripped out. His face scrunched up, and he revealed a wretched smile. Although he couldn't do anything on the surface, the other side couldn't do anything to him when he fantasized in his heart. "You were introduced by Big Brother Pei, right?" Ah Gang licked his lips with a wretched look on his face. Pei Dan Dan didn't know many people in this world. The only one she was familiar with was her big brother, who was in debt. But this time, she didn't use her identity as a little sister to find him, but rather another identity. The identity of a Luo family's young miss. The goods are here." She threw a black envelope onto the wheelchair in disgust and looked at Ah Gang. "I don't need you to do anything. Just send this girl as far away as possible and never come back." Her voice was extremely cold and her eyes were filled with hatred. "Relax. I'll take her money and take care of her." Ah Gang picked up the envelope with his right hand and touched its thickness. He looked it over before revealing a wretched smile. "Not to mention that this little girl is this good-looking. Our brothers really have good luck with women." Pei Dan Dan heard this, and her lips curled into a smile with a deeper meaning. She pursed her red lips and said, Then you have to work hard. Don't give me any face. As soon as her voice fell, she put on her mask and left the waiting hall, not even looking back. Her thoughts hadn't changed from beginning to end. Since she couldn't obtain happiness, no one in this world could obtain happiness. Pain. Shouldn't it be fair for everyone to have it? At the same time, Luo Qingchen and Mo Zhe-chun arrived at the train station at the same time. It was close to the end of the year, and there were many people coming and going, so it was impossible to find a Yu immediately. Where was she? I've already called the station master and had the train crew pay attention to the child. I've already sent the pictures. Mo Zhe-chun tightly held her shoulder with both hands. Don't worry, we'll find her. No. Luo Qingchen took a deep breath and slowly raised her eyes. She looked at him and said, I don't know if you believe in fate, but a Yu has a disaster in her life. If I'm not wrong, it should be today. Although this kind of dialogue seemed like it could only appear in fantasy stories, the 5 elements divination and feng shui had been passed down by powerful descendants since ancient times. It was just that ordinary people didn't know about it. The fast-paced life of modern people had made them forget many things left behind by their ancestors. Actually, everyone had premonitions. You don't tell me you're a prophet. I'm not, but a Yu's grandfather is. Luo Qingchen squinted her eyes, and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. She looked at him and said, It should be a green train with rusty tracks. Green train. Mo Zhe-chun quickly took out his tablet and tapped on it with his slender fingers. If it's a green train, there's a train that's about to leave. No, there's only one train that's leaving today. It's at the East Station. As soon as Mo Zhe-chen's voice fell, Luo Qingchen's expression changed, and she quickly ran toward the station. She promised Mu Wang to save Ayu's life. She would definitely do it. At this time, Pei Dan Dan, who was wearing a black mask and large black sunglasses, saw Luo Qingchen and Mo Zhe-chen not far away. Chapter 1736. The train to Yongping town left at 1:30 in the afternoon, and it was already 1:15, so they should have checked in already. Run slower. Mo Zhe-chun took her hand while gently stroking her hair. There's still time. No, there's no time. Luo Qingchen shook her head. The train is about to leave. I said there's time, so there's time. Mo Zhe-chun looked at her with his deep eyes and waved the phone in his hand. This train will only come today. It won't leave. Luo Qingchen was surprised. Only then did she react. With Mo Zhe-chen's status in a city, it was very easy for him to make a train come in and not leave. In the end, it was a good thing he was here. Walking to the waiting hall, the smoke filled the air and it gave off a bad smell. The sanitation worker gave a sigh and cleaned the ash and cigarette butts on the ground again and again. The economic foundation determined the superstructure. This sentence was quite reasonable. The people here didn't have low statuses. It was their actions that made them this kind of person. After going around, they didn't see Ayu. The people around them all left the waiting area and headed to the gate. Ayu should have already gone in. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips as she looked at Mo Zhe-chun and asked, Do you have a way to let us in now? The tickets should have stopped selling now. If it didn't have someone they knew, they definitely couldn't enter the platform. You can enter as you wish. Mo Zhe-chen's lips curled into a faint smile. Because I'm here. No one would know that in this kind of crisis, when there was someone standing by your side, just how warm that feeling was. She stood on her tiptoes and placed a kiss on his cheek. Thank you, Mo Zhe-chun. I will use my actions to prove that your choice wasn't wrong. The person he loved from beginning to end wasn't wrong. He wasn't a scumbag, but that terrifying obsession of his made him fall into a swamp. She would definitely tell him that his feelings were right. The person he loved and trusted wasn't wrong. Mo Zhe-chun couldn't hide the gentleness in his eyes as he placed a kiss on her forehead. I know. For the past few nights, he had been letting his imagination run wild. The more he thought about it, the more ridiculous it felt, but the closer he got to the truth. Sherlock Holmes once said that when all the impossibilities have been eliminated, the only thing left, even if it is impossible, is the truth. He always had a very scary feeling in his heart, but he never dared to face it directly. That was perhaps the Luo Qingxuan of the past and the present Qingjiu were the same person. It was ridiculous, but he really thought so. Every movement of the young man's hand and eyes seemed to be familiar to him. Even the words they spoke and the actions they took were so similar. If so, then he would be happier than anyone else. However, they would never have thought that the woman standing behind them had already reached her dark hands towards them. At the same time, Ah Gang used the back of his rough hand to rub the girl's delicate calf. This feeling made the blood in his body boil instantly. His mind was filled with thoughts, and his expression was one of wretched enjoyment. Ayu, lying on his back, felt a bit uncomfortable being rubbed by this rough hand. Her eyelashes trembled, and she tightly knit her brows. The noise around her gradually woke her up, and her calf was red and swollen from the rubbing. Chapter 1737. Ah Gang noticed the girl on his back move at the same time, and then there was a sharp cry. At this time, the train hadn't arrived yet. Everyone's eyes fell onto Ah Gang and Ayu at the same time. Some of the more timid girls even took 2 steps back, looking at them with looks of fear. "You? Who are you?" Ayu's legs were a bit weak. She struggled to get off Ah Gang's back, but she couldn't stand firm and fell to the ground. "Damn," Ah Gang muttered in a small voice before saying in a loud voice, "Little sister, you still want to run away with that wild man? How old are you? Quickly come home with big brother." It had to be said, since they were in this line of work, they could encounter sudden situations at any time. This kind of play was quite easy to play out. Everyone looked at them with doubtful gazes, but not a single person moved forward. "No, no." Ayu's face was incomparably pale as she desperately shook her head, muttering, "I don't know her. Save me. Save me." She wanted to run, but she found that she didn't have any strength at all. The wind blew in her ears, and the sound of the green train's kacha rang out as a pleasant whistle echoed through the platform. Luo Qingxuan, who was still climbing the stairs, heard this whistle, and her heart skipped a beat. Her hands couldn't help trembling. It was at this time, Ayu's calamity. "This is bad." She gritted her teeth and ran up 3 flights of stairs. She couldn't hear what Mo Zai-chan was saying behind her. "Wait for her. Wait for her." At the same time, Ah Gang picked Ayu up, planning to get on the train and block her mouth. He didn't expect that the moment he picked her up, his arm would be bitten by Ayu's teeth, and he would bleed immediately. "Damn it!" Ah Gang angrily roared out. At this time, the front of the green train slowly appeared. Pei Dan Dan also walked onto the platform. She took a shortcut and arrived at the platform before Luo Qingxuan. She personally stopped Ayu, who was prepared to run away. Ayu rolled and crawled forward, but she bumped into Pei Dan Dan. She squatted down and stroked her cheeks with her slender fingers. "You're crying so pitifully. I can't bear to see you like this. Let her go." Luo Qingxuan's eyes were cold, and even her voice was trembling with an ice-cold tone. "Big Sister Qing, save me." Ayu's voice was close to screaming for help. Luo Qingxuan's cold eyes narrowed as she looked at the human skin Pei Dan Dan in front of her. Her entire body was emitting a disgusting aura. When she inserted her sharp nails into Ayu's arm, Luo Qingxuan's cold eyes were filled with killing intent. This was the first time she had the intention to kill in this plane. At first, he didn't want to care about this supporting female character, but now, he wanted her dead. This was enough to prove that she had done something that she could not tolerate. "I want you to see with your own eyes the person you want to protect die in front of you." Pei Dan Dan's eyes didn't show any fear or panic, only a deathly stillness. She had seen this kind of gaze before. It was in a sea of flames. She was standing in the middle of the stage and surrounded by flames, but there was no fear in her eyes at all. As soon as her voice fell, she didn't hesitate to push Ayu out of the train before it reached the platform. Chapter 1738. Everything around her became still, and the train was already in front of Ayu. The train was already in front of Ayu. Under everyone's gaze, what could she do to not break the plane that had already collapsed? If she saved Ayu like this, she was afraid. System notification. The plane will completely collapse and usher in an epic level apocalypse. System. Don't play dumb at this point. Tell me what to do. Put death on the ground and fight to live. Don't tell me you're telling me to die. all living things, cause and effect. In addition, the host time and space freeze has reached level 3. You can release one person's freeze. Luo Qingshen understood the meaning of the system, although she didn't know how things would develop. But if IU wanted to pass this tribulation, someone had to die for her. This should be what the system meant by putting death on the ground and fighting to live. And to release a person's freeze, it was probably the system knew that she already saw Pei Dan Dan to the point where she wanted to get rid of her quickly. Ding. Freeze has been released. Pei Dan Dan's entire body shook. The sudden absolute silence made her unable to recover. She looked at everything in front of her in disbelief. What did you just say? Do you want to repeat it? Luo Qingshen's lips curved into an extremely cold smile. Waves of cold air were emitted from her body, as if she could freeze everyone around her. Pei Dan Dan's face was pale. She wasn't someone who was afraid of death. But when she saw everything that was beyond common sense, her heart couldn't help but be filled with fear. This was probably a fear that everyone would have. What is this? She desperately shook her head. At this moment, her flaming red lips were especially scary. Luo Qingshen's eyebrows slightly moved. She looked at her coldly and said, "You don't understand? In our world, this is called time and space freeze." It had to be said that at this moment, looking at Pei Dan Dan's shocked and scared eyes, she felt an inexplicable sense of pleasure in her heart. All the suppressed emotions on the way here seemed to be vented out at this moment. Impossible, impossible, impossible. She said impossible 3 times in a row, but her feet couldn't stand on the ground and softened. Slowly looking over, she saw IU standing in front of the train with a frightened face. "Pei Dan Dan, don't shout. I'm not Pei Dan Dan. I'm Luo Qingshen." She tried her best to defend herself. In this world where there was only her Luo Qingshen, she tried her best to say this sentence to herself. That good-looking face instantly twisted. In all of this, it looked somewhat sinister. No matter who you are, you will always be a pitiful person who can't obtain anything. Luo Qingshen coldly snorted and looked at her with a condescending attitude. "Because you can't kill me, and you can't kill the people around me." "Impossible! I will make you suffer. I will definitely make you suffer." Pei Dan Dan's hands knocked hard on the floor as she screamed hoarsely, "You monster! This world will not tolerate you. You are so ugly, and your status is so lowly. How can you compare to me?" In Luo Qingshen's eyes, she was so funny when she talked to herself about her own shortcomings. What was the point of living for someone who looked down on himself?